what I see is sports is on the frontier of how to handle this frontier of people who are trans. It's on the frontier of how to resolve that. And I'm making this up now. Imagine the future of sports does not distinguish sex. It distinguishes and sorts people by hormone ratios. I'm making this up.
I know you are.
Imagine that if that were the case.
Imagine it.
That would be interesting. You get a hormone test. You're in this range, and then you compete against other people with the same range of hormones.
That's ridiculous.
That's
Neil, that is ridiculous.
No, it's not. I'll tell you why it's
You're
not.
going to get every single
Okay, look, I'm telling you
that.
We're going to skip over Piers Morgan's not diatribe, but stating the obvious. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's looking tweaked out. Like, he's looking straight up tweaked.
Right.
Where does he go?
Where
does he go? A golf fan. And when she started playing golf after she transitioned, she was allowed to play off the women's tees.
Talking about Caitlyn Jenner.
Yards further than the men's tees. And she quickly realized that she was still smashing it 300 yards down, and obviously was then beating all the women that she played. So she now plays back off the male tees because her biology is that of a man. And I feel that was the most honest way to do it.
He's tweaking
harder. I
harder
also
than
feel that if you want to have a separate category, have a trans category, or have trans women compete against men, which is their biology. Isn't that the scientific way to resolve this?
I don't have a solution. What I started this section of the conversation by saying that how you handle trans athletes is a frontier in sports that does not yet have a full solution. And I made up an example, like maybe you could divide people by hormones
or sex.
I don't know if that would work physiologically, but
or logically.
At the end of the day, we watch sporting events because they are competitively interesting.
Yep.
And so something's going to have to get resolved there, and I don't have that solution.
I do.
I do. And I just tossed up hormones.
You have a trans category, or you have the trans women competing against biological men, which is what they are.
Neil deGrasse. He's getting a call.
I completely respect trans rights.
That may be... That may be how it settles, but I don't know. But I'm...
By the way, Neil deGrasse Tyson, former... respected scientists, I don't have a solution to the problem that I just caused for absolutely no reason. That's the definition of progressivism for all of you out there who are wondering, how do you define woke? How do you define progressive? Progressive is not having a solution to the manufactured problem you just created out of thin air. And now people are hypothesizing, how much is this dude tweaking that he's getting a call from his drug dealer in the middle of an interview? My joke is he's getting a call from his handlers like, Neil, you need to get off right now. You need to stop talking and you need to shut down your big mouth that doesn't know when to stop doubling down on your abject, outrageous insanity. That man is I guess he's an astrophysicist. Is he an actual astrophysicist? By the way, intro song is 5 Times August. Liars, Cheats, and Crooks, and I've given you all the link there. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Where do we go? Credentials? Qualification? Now let's go credentials. I guess that might be the word. Credentials. He attended the Bronx High School of Science, went to a major in physics at Harvard. Oh boy, he's doing them justice. And earned a master's degree in astronomy from the University of Texas in Austin. Astrology, like he's Cleo. Call me now. I'll tell you your futures. Anyone who's older than 40 is going to get that joke. Good evening, everybody. How goes the battle? Let me make sure that audio's good. I think I would have gotten the text by now if I weren't live and audible everywhere. Everyone, I don't have my phone because my wife is on it for our weekly Zoom call with the family. She's coming in to give it to me right now. Thank you very much. She just got off the weekly Zoom call with the family. Let me just take a picture of the computer and a hand for scale. Okay. So I got the new computer, peeps. This is the new setup. Now I'm learning. My fat fingers have not yet adjusted to the keyboard. I got the new computer. Some things are not yet fully smooth lined in. Like I didn't download the widget on Rumble that allows me to preserve the Rumble rants. So I might miss some Rumble rants. And if you're going to be upset if I miss the Rumble rants, please don't. I do my best. Same thing goes for YouTube. The best way to do it, go over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com. All of the tipped questions there remain highlighted in perpetuity throughout the universe of the live stream. And Rumble Studio, which I'm using right now, is going to be making some improvements based on my recommendations after having now thoroughly used this streaming platform, which is amazing. Neil deGrasse Tyson, people, is an astrophysicist or an astrologer. He's an astrologer or an astronomist, astrologer. I don't know what the solution is to the problem that I created that never existed before. You have sex categories, weight categories within the sex categories, and that's how it's been, and that's how it's going to be. And you want to create a trans category, you go ahead and do that. Or because there's no there's no biological, there's no woman who's just, there's some, Manon Rhéaume. Everyone remember Manon Rhéaume? A goaltender, wanted to compete in the NHL, which has no sex prohibitions. It's just a question of merit. And there have been, I think, one woman who ever made it into the NHL, Manon Rhéaume. It didn't last long. There was one female kicker in football as well. You want to have biological women who are transitioning into men, let them compete with the men. That doesn't seem to be where the issue is. The issue is men competing with women and beating the ever-loving piss out of them, literally, in some cases. That's the way it's been. That's the way it's going to go back to when sanity returns to this earth. Susie C over in vivabarneslaw.locals.com says, Viva, you have a gamer set up. And USMC Burroughs says, keep up the work, make science great again. Neil deGrasse Tyson has destroyed his reputation, his legacy, and his future. All for what? They've got something on him. He was at a Diddy party. I'm going to look it up. All right. By the way, if you have any lingering doubts as to why you shouldn't trust doctors or professionals anymore, bada bing, bada boom. Before we even get started, let me thank our two sponsors of the evening, and they're interesting and wonderful and new sponsors. By the way, okay, so this is a very interesting thing. I spent time on the phone with the founder of this company to see how it works. Crowd Health. It's not an insurance, people. And I can tell you my experience after having lived in Florida for a little bit of time now. You have your insurance, you pay up the wazoo, out the butt, but at the very least, in theory, you have the coverage when you need it. Then the only problem is, depending on what you're looking for, sometimes they tell you, oh, that doctor's out of your network, they call it. And so you have to go wait to find a doctor in your network, or you pay out of pocket, like I've been doing for some things that came up at the last minute that I didn't want to wait to find someone of my network. Crowd Health is on a mission to revolutionize healthcare. It's not health insurance. It's a better way to plan for healthcare through crowdfunding. Basically, I'm on the phone with the founder, and I was like, it sounds a lot like Give, Send, Go for your health. And it's something very, very interesting. Stop sending money to fear-mongering insurance companies who profit off you while barely covering your medical needs. Check out Crowd Health. How does it work? For $185 for an individual or $605 for a family of 4 or more, you get access to a community of people who are willing to help in the event of an emergency. You get access to telemedicine visits, discounted prescriptions because they negotiate your prices down for a lot of this stuff, and much more without doctors' networks getting in the way. And of course, you'll join the crowd, a group of members just like you who want to help pay for each other's unexpected medical events. Join the Crowd Health revolution. Get help with your healthcare needs today for just $99 per month for your first 3 months with promo code VIVA Health. Crowdhealth.com. Crowd Health is not insurance. Learn more at joincrowdhealth.com. It's an interesting thing, and I spent a lot of time on the phone with the founder. And it's crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. Everybody, you give a certain amount every month. And when you have an emergency or medical need, you submit your receipts. They, through their team, negotiate the prices down because it's basically cash payments for the doctor, so you don't have to worry about a network. And the other members who are contributing monthly as well decide to contribute to any given person's not campaign, but any needs. And you build up credit so that people who don't say no, when their time of need comes around, other people don't say no to them. And you basically crowdsource for your healthcare needs and negotiate better prices with their team. They have a team that will work with every individual who has a claim. It's an amazing thing. Crowd Health, check it out. And the link is in the description. And our second and last sponsor of the evening, we go from not health insurance, Crowd Health, crowdfunding to protecting your house. This is another thing that I actually had to learn. I didn't learn the hard way, touch wood. When you get down to Florida, there's a crime called house stealing, also known as title theft, where criminals can transfer your home's title into their name with just a single document and wipe out your equity without you even knowing it. I'm living in Florida now, and this didn't happen in Canada, or at least not as much, but Florida is the hotbed for this. Family in Sarasota, Home Title Lock caught a cyber thief from New York trying to sell their property on a popular real estate website. The thief had fraudulently changed the title, but Home Title Lock quickly detected it and restored the title back to their rightful owner. Imagine if they hadn't had a Home Title Lock, it would have been disastrous. If you're not monitoring your title, these criminals can get away with this, leaving you, the homeowner, to deal with the aftermath in court. Best way to protect your equity is with triple lock protection from our friends at Home Title Lock. Triple Lock is 24/7 monitoring, alerts, restoration services. You can get a free 30-day trial, free title history report when you use the promo code VIVA30 at HomeTitleLock.com, or use the link in the description below. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code VIVA30 for 30 days of protection with the report for free. There was another thing I wanted to start with, by the way, that I decided not to. I just thought, well, can we see this? See, oh no, see, I can't. Oh no, you see, now when I can't bring up a GIF in Rumble Studio. We're going to talk about a lot tonight, and we're going to talk about the Daniel Penny situation. And I was going to start with a couple of things. We're going to go to one for a bit of humor here, but listen to BLM. This is coming from Luke Rudkowski. And if you don't follow him, you should follow him. We Are Change. We Are Change? Luke Rudkowski. I was just on with him last week. He's amazing. He's fantastic. BLM. You remember what happened when Derek Chauvin, who, spoiler alert for the woman in this video, got convicted for killing Derek Chauvin, even though ample evidence suggests that reasonable doubt existed, to say the least. Listen to this. They're already promising violence if Daniel Penny is not convicted. And we're going to talk about the dirtiness that is going on in that courtroom of the judge who's trying to rig to get any form of a conviction out of that jury. Listen to this.
I'm the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Greater New York. I stand here heartbroken because I have to hug a father who knows that the murderer of his son will most likely go free, who has to look in the face of a jury that no matter the facts, no matter the expert witnesses, no matter the people yelling on that train that day to let Jordan go, you will kill him.
I do wonder what world she's living in. We'll get into it when Barnes gets here. The expert evidence, the dude had a lot of drugs in his system, ketamine, from what I understand. The expert evidence, he was alive after Penny released the so-called chokehold. But wait to see where this goes. They're living in a parallel universe of fiction.
They will not find a white man guilty of killing a black man in modern day America. This is no different than Jim Crow.
Okay, first of all, back it up. You will not convict a white man for killing a black man in modern day America. Set aside how you feel about the convictions, because I actually, after having paid close attention to the Derek Chauvin trial, thought he would get acquitted, believed he should have gotten acquitted because of the reasonable doubt of the drugs that were also in the system of George Floyd. The woman makes a statement. You will never convict a white man for killing a black man in modern day America. Derek Chauvin has entered the chat. Kim Potter has entered the chat. You remember the woman who pulled out her real gun instead of her taser? Killed, I forget the guy's name. No, that's just two in the last, 2 years. Never, won't happen. Because America's so racist, they don't just actually convict white people for killing white cops, white men for killing black people. They wrongly convict them. Because if I think, Kim Potter, whatever she was guilty of, probably should have been lesser than what she was tried for and convicted of. But just don't let reality get in the way of a good narrative, man.
This looks like a picture out of the picture book when you look at that anonymous jury. We have baby boomers who were there doing Jim Crow on this jury. We have young people.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is this jury intimidation? Is this threatening a jury? You know what they say, like jury members don't want to release their names because for jury intimidation. Yeah, they're right. It's just never coming from them. The right.
Who are looking at Daniel Penny as a hero. And what America is a hero, a killer. He didn't give a crap about Jordan. The medical examiner said Jordan turned purple. Yes, black people can turn purple when they are denied oxygen. Every lab report showed he died of asphyxiation. And that doesn't matter because they want to spare a white man the penalty of his crimes. America has not changed, and I hate to say it, it may never change. And people who keep asking, are we going to riot? Are we going to protest? Is that what's needed? Do glass have to break? Do cars have to burn for a black man to get justice in America? We can't show up with peace. We can't show up with facts. We can't show up with evidence and witness after witness. You give us nothing. And then you ask us to love this country. America hates black people, and we see it from that jury pool.
Well, that's one heck of a fantastical hissy fit right there. Can you believe it? I mean, it is nothing but overt jury intimidation in real time. They're gonna burn the city down if they don't get their way on yet another lynch mob conviction of Daniel Penny. I put out a tweet earlier today. Said, like, you know who killed Daniel Penny? BLM killed Daniel Penny. And there are stats to prove this affirmation, not that BLM literally killed Daniel Penny. You make it much more difficult for cops to patrol difficult areas. You make them a little bit more reluctant to intervene when a perpetrator is black. You're killing black people by doing that. And it's either the perpetrators or the victims of the crimes of perpetrators. You know who killed Jordan Neely? The AOC progressives of this world who would sooner pay more attention to illegal immigrants than to their own struggling citizens. You know who killed Jordan Neely? Not Daniel Penny. The policies that gave that man access to drugs, left him on the streets, turnstile cash bail systems that just kick him out of prison every single time. So that he's on the metro after a 3 years of history of unprovoked violent assaults on women. And then he's flipping his shit because he's high off as a kite off ketamine, doing God. You guys watch some videos of what people high on drugs can do. They literally eat faces, and I'm not trying to be funny. That's a different drug. I think that's crocodile. They will literally eat faces. You got some dude with a history of violence. Oh, but he didn't assault anyone on that train. And you get these virtue signaling jackasses on the internet. Oh, Daniel Penny's a murderer. Jordan Neely should be alive today. If the system in that communist hellhole of a state, New York, worked, if you didn't squander hundreds of millions of dollars on illegal immigrants because you created a problem out of whole cloth that you have no solution to, going back to Neil deGrasse Tyson, Jordan Neely would still be alive. That's right. And now they're threatening the jury. Now they're threatening the city. Get another lynch mob, unjust conviction of a white person who had to intervene and probably save people on that bus. And by the way, I don't know what fantastical world she's living in. I didn't hear anybody saying, please stop. I didn't hear anybody on that metro saying that it was Metro's Canadian subway saying that Daniel Penny is a murderer. I heard them saying that he's an actual hero. And you're going to hear what's going on in the courtroom when Barnes gets in here. I see him in the backdrop. Wait until you hear. They go from a lynch mob prosecution. They want to get a lynch mob conviction. And if they can't eke out the lynch mob conviction, the judge is going to do his best to make sure that they're not at the front of his front door like they were at Kavanaugh's. Robert Barnes, sir, how goes the battle?
Surviving.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to good in a couple of weeks. You did a bourbon with Barnes last week, and the community was happy, relieved, and you're looking on the mend. Robert, we got the shirt. We'll be wild. That's what Trump said in his tweet that was impeachable for
January 6th conspiracy.
Oh yeah. So let me see. I think I can list off what we're talking about tonight. It's going to be one heck of a banger show, but we're obviously starting with Daniel Penny. On the menu, I'll do it. Oh my gosh, the oral arguments of the trans treatments for kids. The Daniel Penny, you're going to make sense of this because I think now we got more information. We can make sense of it. Hawk Tuah chick. I have so many dirty jokes. There's a scandal with her meme coin or whatever the heck it was. Syria is going down. We're going to talk about that as well, or at least not going down, but it's an amazing thing how, crossing certain lines in the last 2 months in terms of striking within Russia, regime overthrow in the last month. It's amazing. They can't let peace reign, and a bunch of other stuff, Robert. Okay, look, we're on the Daniel Penny trial topic right now. We'll start with that one. Setting aside all of that intro, Robert, the trial came, the trial went. By all accounts, and I've got a former EMT up in Canada who helps me make sense of these things. Chet, thank you for a very thorough breakdown of why they don't administer mouth to mouth on someone overdosing on ketamine. the trial came, the trial went. There's some very, very, it's not just attenuating evidence. It's like there's reasonable doubt is not just the way this was, if not clear self-defense, a clear necessity to prevent violent assault. There's good reason to believe Neely died not as a result of the chokehold, but as a result of a ketamine overdose because it occurred later on. He was still breathing after the chokehold was released. A whole bunch of stuff that lends to not just reasonable doubt, but outright acquittal. The issue is that there seems to be some holdouts on that jury that they cannot come to a unanimous acquittal. And whether or not it has anything to do with the guy wearing two masks who's depicted in that court drawing, which I'll bring up when you talk, they can't come to a universal acquittal on the greater charge, which is second-degree manslaughter. I hope that's the right charge. The other one is criminally negligent homicide. And like shit got a little wonky on Friday, where it sounded like the judge was saying, don't tell them what is exactly happening with the greater charge, or the higher charge. Just tell them it's dismissed and don't tell them it's an acquittal, and let them go back and deliberate on the lesser charge, which carries upwards of a 4-year maximum sentence. There was some confusion as to whether or not it was being concealed, that the judge was concealing or setting aside the fact that there was a hung jury on the greater charge, which could lead to a retrial on that hung jury charge, as opposed to what actually happened, which was an outright dismissal from the prosecution that was objected to by the defense, which means that you can't be retried for it. And so the judge wanted to hide that fact from the jury while sending them back to deliberate on the lesser charge. And a lot of people were rightly screaming scandal on the interwebs. And I mean, you tell me if this is, the judge said in his, according to the reporting from Intercity Press, I'll take my chance with your theory, people's motion, and not explain to them the consequences, the legal consequences of the dismissal, which is tantamount to an acquittal. How dirty is it, Robert?
I mean, it's to a degree, it's commonplace. In other words, that the judges, sort of do whatever prosecutors want them to do far more often than not. And most people are just unaware of this because they don't normally see the criminal justice process unfurl or unfold in a public way, or not paying much attention to it because they have no reason to. And so consequently, they don't realize how common this kind of behavior is. Now, this particular instruction, choosing to go from an Allen instruction, which is controversial in its own accord, which many defense lawyers feel is a coercive instruction intended to force the holdout to quit holding out, is the assumption that most prosecutors and judges have when they give an Allen charge, is that the holdout is a defense holdout, not the other way around.
Could you explain? I know what it is that many people might not. Allen charge is basically go back and really, really try to come to a conclusion.
Yeah, exactly. It's what many defense lawyers, and I concur with them, see it as an attempt to intimidate the jury into not performing their job. If there's a juror that says, hey, look, I don't believe he's guilty, you shouldn't get barraged by the judge. Well, you need to go back and rethink that, because what message does that send? Because that's in essence what typically happens here. And so that's its own controversial component. I mean, this is a case that would not have been brought in 90% of the country.
Mm-hmm.
It was only brought in New York because he's the wrong race, that the victim was black and he was white. If it was the other way around, because the other way around has happened in New York with this prosecutor, and they have not prosecuted. So they're prosecuting him because he's the wrong race, as Jeremy Carl pointed out. It's also part of a broader pattern of wanting to eviscerate self-defense, to say that the only people who have the right of defense are the government, to give the state a monopoly on the use of force and deprive it of us, which is what the Second Amendment is supposed to be there for. The Second Amendment being broader than just the right to bear arms. It's the right to have your self-defense against others, including the government or anyone else, and not having to depend or rely exclusively on the government for that. So that's sort of the political backstory of what's happening in New York. So it was the right race to prosecute, the right undermining self-defense prosecution that they wanted. It's similar to the Rittenhouse case out of Wisconsin, where the was straightforward self-defense, wouldn't have been brought in many jurisdictions, was because of the particular politics of the prosecutor in that case. And here the X factor was the jury, that you have a Manhattan jury pool, and having dealt with them, the Manhattan jury pool in past cases, including political cases, like the so-called Central Park Karen case of Amy Cooper and others. We did surveys on that. We tested there's a lot of bad jurors. So the fact that you have a double-masked guy is not, is probably, I mean, what's the likelihood that juror is a pro-defense juror? Hard to imagine that, to be honest with you, because it sounds like an intimidated, a authoritarian personality who will do what the state tells him to do.
And not just that, someone who's so germ neurotic, they're not taking the subway in any event, and they don't have to deal with any of that crap. Probably working from home.
Correct. So it always came down to the jury, and could you get a reasonable jury? And there were two aspects of that. One was, could you get a reasonable jury in the sense of an acquittal, which is what I think a reasonable jury would do in most cases. But in Manhattan, it would be probably more, half a dozen of this, half a dozen of the other. You're probably looking as much to put people on the jury that will just not convict no matter what. But because you're probably going to get stuck with jurors who want to convict no matter what. And what the judge did was basically give an instruction, go back and give me a conviction, and ignore the top count that you can't agree on. So that is an unusual phenomenon in New York. As the defense counsel pointed out, this encourages prosecutors to overcharge if they can just dismiss the charges come verdict time. That the reason the disincentive for prosecutors to overcharge is that if they can't get an agreement in New York on that top count, they don't go to the lower counts, is my understanding. And so that's why they took a gamble. The gamble backfired on them. And they were like, okay, let's pretend we never took this gamble. And the judge is like, yeah, I agree. We need to convict this kid no matter what. That's really what's going on. And the question is whether or not there's enough honest, honorable jurors to make sure he's not convicted of a crime he did not do.
So they go back to, they're back in deliberations. They're not sequestered. From what I understand, some of them are following the media. So they're listening to the Black Lives Matter lady threaten their safety if they don't give them the conviction they want. And they come back tomorrow to adjudicate on the lesser charge, which was criminally negligent homicide, which is still a felony that carries a maximum sentence of 4 years.
Correct. So at least he doesn't face an extended time in prison, but it's ridiculous that he faces any time in prison.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, why do I hear something here? Son of a gun. Sorry. I was going to just say that I'm able now to toggle between screens without seeing the spinning wheel of death. This computer is fast and furious, people.
Oh, yeah. You got the new one, right?
I know. Well, the new one that I ordered, a member of our community, Encryptus, said I should get as much unified memory as possible. And so it was an add-on, and it cost like extra money, and I had to wait like 2 weeks for the computer to come. And then I'm sitting here, 2 weeks and 2 days, it's not here. I look and they canceled the order, and I didn't get any notification. So I just ordered a sort of standard 16-inch with 48 gigs of unified memory. And thus far, it's very good. Let me read 3 Rumble rants before they disappear. $50 from Chance Up Timor says, I am a Jan 6er with exclusive footage regarding agent provocateur. I was a victim of FBI lawfare charged with the same rare statute Biden was just pardoned for. Your viewers might be interested in my story. I'm willing to do an interview if you are, as am I. So I've screen grabbed that, and I'm gonna Chance Up Timor, and I'll see if I can get you. If I can find a way to get in touch with you, you can try to find me on Twitter. Then we got Boz Bundalo says, what drivel? Very unfortunate time for her. You don't want to expose yourself too much when everyone knows you are stealing money and committing fraud. And I presume that's about the Black Lives Matter fraud. It would be beautiful to see $10 Daniel Penny supporters. 10,000 Daniel Penny supporters outside the courthouse on Monday. Yeah, until they call that an insurrection and use the powers of the FBI to go after all of them. Robert, okay, before we head on, everybody, by the way, if you're new to the channel, we start on all 4 platforms: YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And then we vote with our feet and our dollars, and we head over to Rumble and Locals. And then we have a Locals after party for supporters only. What I was going to say is, before we go over there, let's deal with the big freaking news of the day. Assad regime has fallen. Who the hell has caused them to fall? How the hell does it happen now? What the hell happens now? From what I understand, Assad and his family have fled to and sought refuge in Russia. David Axelrod had a great joke that Assad went and spent the night over at Tulsi Gabbard's couch. And I'm like, you effing pervert. It's always about stupid sex with you disgusting pervs. And also your comedy is about as good as your political insight. rebels have overthrown the Assad regime and chased him out of the country. And now what this means, I mean, now you see Netanyahu and Israel talking about going in. I don't know if they're already bombing chemical factories or whatever the heck they're going to do. I don't know who's going to replace Assad. It sounds like it's going to be highly Islamic regimes, which I don't know how you measure levels of badness, but that might not be better than Assad. What do you make of this? Why now? Is this another military industrial complex instigated, subsidized coup to overthrow Assad that they've wanted to do for the last decade plus?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's sort of a decision that was made some time ago that we went from, you had the Ottoman Empire, which controlled most of the Middle East, even if it was kind of weak by the 19th century, that was replaced by, the Brits and the French and everybody getting together in World War I. And the Brits and the French made all kinds of promises. Greater Syria was one of the very original first ever promises made, that was going to be given to certain royal wings within the Arab world that if they would rebel against the Ottoman Empire. And so of course, we made competing and conflicting promises to different groups and different people. And the French wanted their piece, the Brits wanted their piece, the Americans wanted their piece. So you have all these competing, conflicting areas of empire making conflicting promises to different groups within the Arab world over a century ago. Of which many were promises were not kept. And we're still experiencing the fallout from that more than a century later. And part of what the sort of median compromise was by some groups within that realm was that they would have sort of either royalist or secular leaders. And it's secular in the sense that they weren't over the top Islamist in the way that, say, Iran is or Hamas is. And you had some of that in Nasser in Egypt, and Nasser for a while united with Syria, and Assad's father came up under that power regime, and Syria was, you have Kurds, you have different Islamic groups, you have Christian groups that have long been there, so you have and then you have conflicts between there and Lebanon, conflicts between there and Israel, and everybody wanting to dominate the Islamic world. So Nasser wanting to be the leader of the Islamic world. MBS currently wants to be the leader from Saudi Arabia of the Islamic world. The Iranians wanting to be the leaders of the Islamic world. This sort of Islamist mantle claim to power that they have sought out now for over a century, with the backdrop of these various betrayals and empire politics constantly creating conflict in the region. And you had a relatively peaceful time period, all things being considered, for a pretty extended time period from the 60s through the 80s, in the sense of, between Nasser and others in Egypt, the Assad regime in Syria, the Saddam Hussein regime in Iraq, the Gaddafi regime in Libya. These were not Islamists. These were not Islamist supremacists. These were people who were even occasionally sporadically critical of various Islamist supremacist mindsets and mentality. And after the end of the Soviet Union, as General Clark talked about, people, the CIA and the rest, decided that they wanted to break up. That was their great opportunity to remove Russia's influence in the Middle East and take over the Middle East, and sort of recreate what they created with the Shah back in the 70s and 60s in Iran. And then what we did was unleash we sided with everybody at one time or another, so that there's no bad guy we have not been on the side of. If you want to look up an interesting article, anti-Soviet leader wins in Afghanistan. Go find that headline from the New York Times. Find who the photo is of that Americans were cheering that day. They were cheering, of course, Osama bin Laden. He is the anti-Soviet leader Americans had helped free Afghanistan before. How did that turn out? I mean, Afghanistan, disaster. Libya, disaster. Iraq, disaster. Lebanon, disaster. And now we're going to have Syria, disaster. These people can't help themselves. They are thrilled and ecstatic at the removal of Assad. You could be critical of Assad. I mean, the regimes were not known for their kindness or politeness in the way they handled a whole bunch of things, known for torture and other bad treatment of a range of groups. But you always in the Middle East or any place else have to ask, what's the alternative? And it's the number one question our elites don't ask because they don't care.
Well, I mean, what are the alternatives in Syria?
Oh,
Because
they're all Islamic.
ISIS or
they can
Al
go back
Qaeda.
and look. The U.S. State Department, the guy that just is now the head of Syria, was a listed wanted man for $10 million just 8 years ago by the U.S. State Department. He's one of the leading Islamist terrorists in the world. That's who just took over Syria. And that's who our so-called smart people are praising. That's who David Axelrod is praising. That's who the establishment types and the Ukraine lovers are praising. They're praising a known terrorist with one of the most vicious reputations in the world. Now, how did this come about? It came about entirely because the other leader that people forget about in that region that wants to be the Islamic leader of the world. Right? It's been a phenomenon in the Islamic world ever since we seeded the idea to take out the Ottomans. We were the ones that came in and say, shouldn't you be the great Arab leader of the world? Shouldn't you be the great Islamic leader of the world? Why should you be dominated by the Ottomans? Well, guess who it is that wants to restore that Ottoman Empire? It is the one and only President Erdogan of Turkey. This is his group. He's organized them. He's protected them. He's safeguarded them. He's funded them. He's trained them. He's armed them. But it would have not been any chance of success if the U.S., the U.K., and France were not neck deep in this. And this, again, goes centuries old. I mean, the U.S., U.K., and France have been messing around in Syria for more than 100 years. Helped create what is called Syria. What it was called when it was called Greater Syria before that. And we've gone back and forth at who we're going to be buddies and pals with. But the removal of Assad just destabilizes a huge part of a country and removes somebody from that region that has kept stability in that region that otherwise is probably going to now look like Iraq and Libya. So, we're just going to be waiting for the human trafficking centers to be in the center of Damascus, this historically religious city. The Christians are already nervous about what might happen. Most of the Christians have already fled Syria over the years, as they have fled Lebanon much over the years, despite what some people have said in that space. If track it, you'll see otherwise. Same in the Gaza Strip. There used to be a lot more Christians in Gaza than there are today. That isn't because of Israelis, by the way. But it's just a disaster waiting to happen. And now they've seeded this disaster on Trump's lap. That Trump's going to come into a region with Syria. What he has said is he wants the U.S. out of it. Even though he's talking about the U.S. should stay out of it, that's true. But the U.S. has not stayed out of it. The U.S. has been neck deep in it. The U.S. has been all over the place, seizing property, seizing oil, seizing foods, seizing items, bombing places, providing troops, providing intel. Without the United States, they never would have been able to overthrow Assad. And how likely is it that overthrowing Assad will turn out any better than overthrowing Gaddafi or overthrowing Husseini? I doubt it.
Well, and it's not just that. Like they don't have nuclear weapons, but they clearly have chemical weapons and biological weapons. And the argument was who was the actual culprit of using those on Syrians back when there was what I think most agree now was a false flag, or at least it wasn't Assad that had used the chemical weapons on his people. Hypothetically, I mean, these weapons fall into the hands of somebody, and somebody, in as much as Assad was a bad guy, and there's no downplaying that. He wasn't using those chemical or biological weapons for international terrorism. The same cannot and obviously is not necessarily even going to be true of the entities that will replace Assad and take control over these weapons.
Well, yeah, not only that, you have how the issues are going to be resolved with Iran, which has various militias and proxies at present in Syria, how Lebanon handles it, how Hezbollah handles it. You've got all these. You've created this huge space. So Israel's reaction is, well, now Syria can no longer safeguard their treaties. So we're going to go into the Golan Heights and some of those sections and secure those. And apparently we're part of bombing various places they thought had stored chemical weapons before the other groups could get their hands on them. That's the concern current, as you mentioned. That's one of the concerns is what weapons will they now get? The Syrian army has left to Iraq, so I mean that's basically an extension of Iran now. Assad was trying to balance out like his father and try to create a coalition. He was working with the Gulf states and other states. Now that's gone, so that Syria is either going to be in the back pocket of it's either going to be an extension of Turkey or an extension of Iran. That's kind of where we're at currently. Either way, we're probably going to have looting, rioting, crime, religious violence, sectarian violence, all those things. It's going to be a disaster. I mean, that's what Libya became. That's what Iraq became. There's no reason to think Syria will be any different.
Let me bring this one up here.
Did you bring it up?
What opportunity for whom? Sorry, it's tough not to be very, very cynical of everything. But listen to this.
Am I supposed to be listening to something?
Oh, was that you, Robert?
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, you're not. Hold on. Am I an idiot?
I think it's just you looking at the camera.
Yeah, I'm just an idiot. That's not the computer, guys. You see it now?
I don't see it yet.
Hold on. What the heck is going? This might not be me. This is okay. I'm here. I'm going to open this because I'm sure that's great. I'm nice. I'm watching a video that nobody's watching. Now you see it.
I don't.
What the in the name is going? Hold on. I'm in presentation. Well, that's very weird. Stop share screen. Well, I shared the screen during this very stream. Duo presentation. It's Netanyahu talking about it. How is this possible? I literally shared already during this stream.
It's Mossad.
Well, it's Netanyahu talking about what a great event this is. That it's a momentous day. And
I've never understood that mindset. I've never understood the mindset of that Netanyahu has. That anybody that's ever opposed Israel, their removal is a good thing, because it's like, who's going to replace them?
The amazing.
Hussein was not the threat that Iraq is now. The Libya under Gaddafi was not the threat that it is now. Syria without Assad is a greater threat to Israel than it was before then. So it's like, how is there anything to cheer here? I'm not understanding that at all. But they've often had this very, at least Netanyahu, short-minded, short sense, short-term sense of just this guy's bad, his gone, that means good. And he's often been dead wrong about that. I mean, just like his promoting Hamas to compete with the PLO and Fatah. I mean, that totally backfired on him. And he just hasn't had to pay a political price for it. But it was clearly a disaster in what it led to. And I think this is another example of that.
It seems unable to share the screen for whatever. The clip is on the internet. Go watch it if you want to see what appears to be someone reveling in the outcome that they've always wanted. He says it's happened because they were so hard on Hezbollah and what's the other one in Israel? Hezbollah and the other terrorist Hamas. He says it's because they were so hard on them that Syria has magically fallen.
It was just purely Turkey doing what they wanted to do. And Russia being in a careful position. Now, I mean, granted, clearly Assad, there were issues with how he had managed and how his father had managed the government. I mean, that a big part of Syria's problems are of Assad's own making. No doubt about that. But without all the foreign intervention, the Assad regime would still control Syria.
Let's do one more quickly before we head on over.
We got the pardons. I mean, we got the pardons as predicted, no less.
Well, pardons. Okay, we're gonna lump all this together. Pardons as predicted. What's his face? Chad Cronister withdrew his candidacy. So we have a bit of a microphone here, peeps, and people are listening. The pardon, Robert. Okay, what day of the week was that? Only last week, the pardon? Like the pardon it happened the day we were live, and then the fallout happened afterwards. Joe Biden has made the Democrats look like a bunch of lying jackasses. Period. Dan Goldman especially is the grossest of lying jackasses on the internet. The montage of Karine Jean-Pierre saying, "No, I'm not going to pardon." No, the answer is still no, 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 no. Yes, a decade, a blanket pardon for. I'm going to ask you the first question that I want to ask. So Joe Biden gets a 10-year blanket pardon for everything for which he was charged, potentially charged, and anything that has not yet happened that we didn't know about. That's that blanket for a decade of immunity at the federal level. People were saying on the internet, yeah, well, now he can't plead the fifth anymore. And then during a stream last week, someone says, yeah, well, he could still plead the fifth because he could still be incriminating himself potentially at a state level or an international court if we want to go there. But let's stick with the state level. So it is legally correct that once you've been given a pardon, you can no longer invoke the fifth because there's no risk of incrimination. But how does that play in terms of a potential state prosecution, which he could incriminate himself in by speaking if summoned before Congress?
It depends on the circumstances is the short answer. So it depends on what the state prosecution can be as to how it interacts with the question and the pardon, and as to whether or not you still have any degree. You don't have Fifth Amendment immunity for federal prosecution because you're immune for anything that the pardon covers from federal prosecution. So the question becomes, does the question concern state prosecution? And in that instance, can you assert the Fifth Amendment right if you have its equivalent under the state constitution, which you often do? Or you could argue to the due process clause against the states in general. And that will depend on the specific nature of the question and the specific nature of the risk under the state law.
Okay. The people are also saying that the pardon is actually just Biden covering his own ass because now Hunter will not be able to testify. In theory, he won't be able to be prosecuted for financial crimes, which would tie their way into Joe Biden's influence peddling that had occurred over the last decade. By the way, the 2014 starting point is when Biden joined Burisma.
Yes.
No coincidence there. So what's your take on whether or not this protects Biden? Because first of all, I mean, he's on his way out, not just of the office, but of this planet, and no, not wishing any ill. He's 81 years old and clearly past his due date. I mean, what do you make of this? Is he protecting himself? Does he still got exposure? Has anyone else in the family still got any meaningful legal exposure for the family crime syndicate that is the Biden family?
Oh, I mean, no doubt. Both the sister, the brother, and Joe himself, and Jill would all have exposure because of the way they were so systemic in their criminal family operations. But they were also, a critical component of deep state criminality. And that's, I think, where the real protection is ultimately. So by protecting the Bidens, he protects the deep state. So I would anticipate more pardons coming. I mean, my original what I said from day one is that he would never let the son go in, and he'd let the son know that he would pardon him when the time was right, after the election. So that prediction has now come to fruition. The only question is, does the other prediction come to fruition? Does he extend the pardon to others, such as Donald Trump? Does he extend it to other members of his own family? Does he extend it to Anthony Fauci? Does he extend it to a whole bunch of deep state Democrats or high-ranking rhino Republicans who don't want any scrutiny coming their way for what they've been up to the last decade or so? Whether that's Mitch McConnell, Mitch McConnell's wife. I mean, there's a lot of people that belong in prison up there in Washington. And all of them would like pardons. So now that he's already opened the door by pardoning his son, expect that door to be opened up further. You're already seeing prominent Democrats saying, hey, pardon Trump too. Fetterman was making the rounds saying, pardon Trump. The Congressman Clyburn from South Carolina was making the rounds saying, yeah, let's pardon Trump. Some other prominent Democrats, Bill Clinton was even suggesting pardon Trump. And extend the pardons, just pardon a whole bunch of people. And they will use they're already starting with the pitch that we talked about that they would use 2 years ago. Said the pitch would be, we need to get past all this politics. We can't be dragged down by all of this. Let's just move on and pardon everybody on the way out the door. And that's already their pitch they're making. Clyburn was already saying it this morning on the Sunday morning shows, saying that, hey, it's time to move on. We can't get dragged down in this way. Let's just pardon everybody across the board politically. And it's just a coincidence 98% of them will be Democrats or COVID criminals.
I was going to ask something. Okay, so the pardon, does Biden he can pardon himself as well?
Oh, absolutely.
And,
There's
and
no.
he-
I mean, I know some people that want to limit the pardon power. First of all, the plain language of the Constitution doesn't limit it. It talks about reprievals and pardons. It puts no restriction whatsoever on it. The history of it is would not favor restricting that power whatsoever. So just because you don't like who Joe Biden may pardon is no reason at all to take away the Constitution's grant of that power to the president. What it is, it should be a green light to Donald John Trump to really exercise the pardon power in the way our founders meant it. Use it to highlight problematic cases. Not just use it to highlight the January 6th cases. Use it to highlight Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro in those cases. But go beyond those. Use it to highlight the meme case. I mean, obviously he should be pardoned, Mackey, out of the Eastern District of New York. But there's other cases along those lines. Pardon Julian Assange. Pardon Edward Snowden. Pardon, or at least commute, Ross Ulbricht. Pardon Roger Ver, Bitcoin Jesus, as he's colloquially known. Pardon any of these people that have been caught up or targeted for political reasons over the past decade. There are people that have already served their time that deserve pardons as well. And just highlight these cases that, hey, our Justice Department got out of hand. Our FBI got out of hand. Our criminal agencies, enforcement agencies got out of hand. Our federal judiciary got out of hand. And highlight them week after week after week with high-profile pardon after pardon after pardon. Don't look at what Biden did as a reason to complain about what Biden did. You look at it as an opportunity to use that power in a way that it was intended by the founders, which is a robust power, and to highlight and to educate the broader American public on how out of control the civil and criminal justice systems have become in the United States in the past half decade, and use high-profile cases to attract attention to it. Whether it's the January 6 cases, Steve Bannon, Bitcoin Jesus, Julian Assange, Edward Snowden. Look at every single whistleblower that Obama prosecuted, every single whistleblower that Biden prosecuted. Pardon every single one of them. That you can't trust those prosecutions. You can't trust the way those prosecutions were handled. You can't trust the way those administrative operations took place. So that Trump should use it as an opportunity to really use the pardon for the people it was intended for.
Correcting one thing earlier, it was not ketamine, it was K2, the synthetic marijuana, which has been linked to loss of consciousness, tachycardia, diffuse pain. K2, not ketamine. So correcting myself, everybody. Thank you. The question was this whole, going back to the pardon. People are asking also, can the pardon ever be revisited? Can someone undermine
Can't reverse a pardon. It's done.
Okay. And now on Friday, I had on Coy Griffin, who was, I didn't know that there was a distinction between, is there such a pardon of innocence versus a pardon? Is there a distinction from the presidential level in terms of whether or not the pardon can say, I'm not just forgiving you for what you did, but I'm also proclaiming you innocent in this pardon?
You can say that, but legally it's the same.
Okay. And by the way, just the FYI for everybody, if you go to, it is givesendgo.com/fight. If you do want to help out with Coy here I can't share it because it can't see the screen. And someone said, refresh. I'm not refreshing because the lesser problem is not being able to share the screen. I refresh and end this stream. Not doing that. Although we'll see if it allows us to end on YouTube and go over to Rumble, which is what we're going to do right now. Before we do that, and I can't show all of the rants. Chet Chisholm says, Jordan Neely was on K2, a synthetic cannabinoid. My mistake earlier when I thought K, I thought it was ketamine. Still dangerous, causes cardiac issues in high enough doses. Etexley, I wish Trump would tap Senator Gus Perna for DEA admin. He developed and ran Operation Warp Speed. Drug trafficking is a logistics enterprise. Jen Perna was the Army's 4-star logistics expert, retired now. V6 Neon says Democrats doing a Sergeant Schultz German accent regarding pardons. Cover up in lawfare. I know nothing. I see nothing. I hear nothing. Bulldozer says refresh Viva makes your stream restart. Cameron Mike not doing that. And Schmickel. Payman Ascari, a PPC candidate, just interviewed the representative Peter McIsaac regarding the court case in Nova Scotia on independence being left out of the election. Oh, that's King of Biltong. I can't bring it up. Nobody's going to see this, but looking for some healthy, high-protein stocking stuffers this season, get yours at BiltongUSA.com. We will ship Biltong to your loved ones, door-to-door, 10% discount with code VIVA. That is BiltongUSA.com. And then we got Schmickel with Elections Canada saying in Canada, they're modernizing the electoral system for the federal election. Voter lists, same thing happened in BC elections. Check out at The Remanded on X. Robert, do you still see me? Oh, not knowing if I'm still viewable. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. So what just happened? Let's see if Robert comes back in here. All right, Robert. Now can I switch windows? I can do like this. When did everyone lose me?
Only for a second, I think.
Okay, good. Just refresh them, and let's see. Well, I refreshed. Let's just see if this works now. Oh, do you see anything?
Yeah.
Oh, looky. Dude, once bitten, twice shy. I don't want to refresh because the last time I did that, Pinochet's helicopter tour says, enough with the pardons. If thousands of corrupt feds and politicians are not destroyed for what they did, they'll do it again. If you rig the ballot box, nullify the juror box with pardons. Nah, I'm not reading that part. But Robert, the pardons don't end state prosecutions. So hypothetically, Hunter Biden, sex trafficked. I don't know what this, they can still go after him at the state level.
Yes.
Just not for tax issues. So I don't know. It's with Hunter, it seems a little bit illusory.
It's because nobody's gone after him on the state level.
Okay, well, let me see here. Damn it. Oh, here we go. Now we can listen to Bibi for a second. Yeah. Listen to this.
This is a historic day for the Middle East.
Oh, that's great.
The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah in Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its oppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats.
Oh, yeah.
One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel.
Well, there is only hostile forces in Syria, left in Syria.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, for the most part, I don't know what some Assad supporters and some Christian groups and others that are still present, because because of the collapse took place so fast, because the army had imploded without recognition that it had imploded.
Position until a suitable arrangement is found.
Suitable.
Equally, we send a hand of peace to all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes to defend the state of Israel and the border of Israel.
It's amazing. If you analogize that to COVID, it's a great opportunity. Temporary measures. We'll just go in and it'll be temporary until it's suitable. And this is gonna.
Yeah, I've never understood the logic. I mean, it was clear that Syria was a manageable partner for Israel, for the Middle East, for anybody else under Assad. Now it's not. How is that an improvement? How has this worked out good for anybody yet? It's like, oh yeah, I see all these people cheering on the internet. And it's like, you're the same people who cheered when Afghanistan fell. You're the same people who cheered when Libya fell. And you're the same people who cheered when Iraq fell. All three have been utter disasters. Why do you think Syria will be any different? I'm yet to hear a single persuasive argument for it from any of these cheerleader types.
All right, we are moving over to Rumble or Locals. The links are there. Thank you to our sponsors of the evening, Crowd Health and Home Title Lock. Check out the links there in the description. And now I'm going to update the stream. Make sure I don't do anything stupid with my fat fingers here. I'm going to go like this. Rumble and Locals, and it's going to end on Twitter or X and CommieTube. Get your butts on over. If you don't want to, it will be on podcast tomorrow. And the entire stream will be posted as well, either on Viva Fry or Viva Clips. I'll see which way I want to screw things up there.
By the way, was that snake a poisonous snake or not? The one that
it was
you were
not,
picking
but
up and throwing around.
It's the consensus. It was the brown-bellied mud snake. They're not venomous, but they're nervous, which means Snakes bite, man. Like even the non. I don't want to get bit by a non-venomous snake. That thing looked pissed also, but it was better than getting run over
It
by
sure
a
did
car.
look ticked off. But Ethan was ready to just go in there and just get a
Oh,
hold
dude.
of him.
Well, now that we know what it looks like, I'll let him. I don't say I'll let him get bit. That might be neglect. He wanted to, but we'll do it sooner than later. Come on over to Rumble or vivabarneslaw.locals.com. 3, 2, 1. Okay, what do we go on to? While we're talking about
Well, we
stupid
got Trump
decisions,
Secretary of Defense appointees and other nominees.
yes.
That could be the easiest transition.
that
Before
that should have been the one.
I don't know if there's a natural transition to Hawk to a girl.
No, but there's. I can't even make the jokes. I was going to say stupid decisions, and let's talk about Sotomayor's reasoning in the trans case. But no, we should finish off the second half of this. So, Chad Cronister withdrew his application. Do we know why? Because I didn't hear any.
There was
reason
enough
why.
blowback in the court of public opinion that that Trump came out and said he asked him to step down, that he was unaware of some of the statements and activities he had done during COVID, didn't want to relitigate COVID as part of his DEA nomination, so asked him to step down, and he did. So that was nice to see. Another sign. I mean, this was another. This was someone that Susie Wiles recommended, his chief of staff. Poor recommendation in my view. She should have known that about him, but she was on the pro-COVID lockdown side, so that's why she's still. People like that around Trump are still unaware that of the degree to which those issues are hot button problems. And it would surprise me if she was the one pushing for either Ernst or DeSantis to replace Hegseth, because those are her allies as well.
Someone had asked about a question about Trump. Oh, cripe. I'll have to go. I know I screen grabbed it. So Cronister withdrew, and that's good. Who else did he pick?
Hegseth is standing strong, which is the Secretary of Defense, which is relevant to the whole Syria topic, because he's a guy who served the country a long time, came back and slowly began to second guess the Pentagon's established logic of war abroad and war in the Middle East and war in Europe and war in Afghanistan, war everywhere else. So he went from being the true blue patriotic, fly the flag, militaristic, a soldier serving in the field, to someone who said, hold on a second, are we really serving our soldiers? Are we really serving our country? And that's why Mitch McConnell doesn't like him. That's why Jody Ernst, who's always been a waste of space, doesn't represent the people of Iowa well at all, has always been a war whore from day one. That's who Ernst is. Campaign is a fraud, that she was going to clean up the corruption. She is the corruption. She always has been the corruption. The mistake she made is she thought she could take front aim at Hegseth and dispatch him, and instead is now getting massive blowback from Trump world. That she's probably now going to be challenged in the Republican primary in 2026 in Iowa, and that's a state where Susan Collins, it's a waste of time to challenge her. It's a Democratic state in Maine. In Alaska, because of that whole ranked choice voting, that's how Murkowski can hold on to power, despite the Republicans trying to throw her out repeatedly, and because she doesn't really represent the Republican side. She inherited that seat and then stole it. But Ernst is easily defeatable in a state that Trump just won by almost 14 points. Iowa is a historic anti-war state, especially. That's what makes her position the most preposterous. She ran to be nominated by Boeing and McDonnell Douglas and the rest. That's who she is, and now she's getting exposed as it. And a lot of people in Iowa and other places didn't know it, didn't realize that these people are frauds, fakes, phonies. Thuney's a fake and a phony. 2/3 of the Republicans in the Senate are a waste of time. And the only question is, can you get them to at least try to honor their voters' intentions at least some of the time, rather than endanger the rest of us on a constant basis? But it looks like Hegseth is back in the driver's seat and is in excellent position. And in the same vein, Trump made clear this week, the other person they went after related to Syria is Tulsi Gabbard. And Trump's made clear he's going to the mattresses for both Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. And so they can take what chances they want, but he's going, people better rethink their options in that regard. And too many of these Republicans approved every single Biden nominee. Didn't make a fight over hardly any of the Biden nominees. So you can't, after you side with some of these Biden nominees, men dressed up as women in the military and so on and so forth, then you really are not in a position to second guess any aspect of Trump's nominations. So we'll see how it progresses. But the ordinary Republican will continue to be exposed to how most of the Republicans in the House and the Senate couldn't give a rat's rear end about the party, about the ordinary voter in their party.
Explain. Primary means that instead of them running unchallenged, another Republican would challenge them in the primaries, potentially unseat them in the primaries to then run in the generals against a Democrat opponent.
Correct.
Okay.
And in Iowa, a Republican would win. So I mean, I think Ernst is done, but she'll cash in 2 years. She'll get a big fat contract from Boeing. She'll get a big fat contract from McConnell Douglas. She'll get a big cat from all the defense contractors. She'll make millions and millions of dollars. The same way that Nikki Haley is. The same way that Tim Scott knows he will someday. The same way Lindsey Graham knows he will someday. The way Mitch McConnell and his family already is fabulously rich. So it's a part of the systemic problem we have in Washington that Trump just continues to expose, sometimes by accident as much as by intent.
And that's amazing. I can see my face temporarily lit up white when I go to flash another screen, so everybody knows. But now I finally found the question I was looking for. It was over on CommieTube where MRAM63 says, Viva, are you going to discuss Tom Tillis saying he will vote no on Trump picks if they don't want to continue sending money to Ukraine?
He has disputed what he said, but he's also DOA. So Tillis has always been a war whore and a political hack out of North Carolina, just like Burr was. That North Carolina was represented by Republicans who didn't represent the interests of the people of North Carolina. Strong anti-war tradition especially in the mountain base of Western North Carolina. And yet these people were being betrayed by the people being elected to the Senate, often on the ticket on the following Trump's elections to get into office themselves. That's the case for both Burr and Tillis. Both of them at various points have apparently made money on insider deals connected to the defense industry and their stock in Congress. That's who Tillis is. He's always been a war whore and a corrupt hack. I mean, and like I said, most of the Republicans in the House and the Senate are corrupt hacks. So it's Trump trying to get them to not be so corrupt every single day that he can't get his job done. That's what the next 2 years is about. And trying to get people in administrative positions that can start to try to clean up at some level. But it's just the beginning of the effort. The biggest hurdle is members of House and the Senate who call themselves Republicans. They are the biggest traitors of the bunch. They're worse than most of the Democrats up there. Democrats at least say who they are. These Republicans lie about it.
All right. So they're feeling out right now to see how many of the Republicans would vote no against a pick. If they say we're putting it to a vote, what's the process for like that? Do they have
they have hearings before the committee, then the committee votes, and then they have a floor vote. And what they like to do is to try to create as much pressure as possible to where the person voluntarily withdraws, like Gates did, and so that they don't have to be embarrassed by voting against them. So Trump is making it increasingly clear that that's not going to happen for many people. So that he's not going to let them say I'm going to step down, and that only happens sporadically. It won't happen with some of the people they want it to have happen with. He's clear about the defense secretary positions not changing, Kennedy's positions not changing, and Gabbard positions not changing, and Radcliffe is not changing. Those four are not budging, and they're going to have to either go along or risk a direct confrontation. And then it's how long do they want to be there? I mean, McConnell's going to be gone in 2 years. Everybody knows that. How many of the others want to be gone in 2 years or 4 years? So if there's anybody up there that wants to be there 4 years from now, 6 years from now, 8 years from now, then they better play ball with Trump. Anybody that doesn't may not be there for 2 years from now, 4 years from now. They'll just be gone, their political career over.
But if they do confirmation hearings for each and every one of them, I mean, a day, a week, and do they schedule it right away?
Yeah, they can set the hearings as long as they choose for the most part. And you can have parallel hearings going on.
Okay. Okay, let's see here. Bulldozer over on Rumble says, "Oh yay, a little of faith." And then the Clear site says, "Made a song about Anton's meat in all your mouths." It's at SwitzerlandPlayIt.com meat song, guys. If you want to check out the link, it's over on Rumble. Okay. All right, so that's interesting. Is there anything else on the appointments, the nominees? How many positions does he have to fill? I mean,
there's tons of positions. So it looks like a lot of so far so good. Really, there's only been a couple of positions they've pushed back on, and that there'll be a couple more that they continue to, but that it doesn't. It looks like Trump still has the upper hand to get through the key people he wants to have through. But that there's a lot of people on that list to just get the ball started in terms of the cabinet.
All right. Well, I guess this is a good segue talking about getting the ball started. We can go to Hawk Tuah now. Okay, I'm sorry. For those who don't know, like I just take for granted everybody knows who the Hawk Tuah woman is. She's that I want to say Alabama or Mississippi.
Tennessee. She's from Tennessee, actually.
Tennessee. Okay. Well, she was the Southern girl who was talking about sexual proclivities when someone asked her, what's the easiest way to get over a boyfriend? And then she said to get under another one. And then what's their favorite thing to do in the bedroom? And she goes, you got to spit on that thing, Hawk Tuah. And then she literally went viral. She launched a career that I would say, women of the night could only aspire to launch doing the Hawk Tuah. She got the podcast. It was called Talk Tuah. I'm making a joke. They got to make a horror movie that's going to be called Talk Tuah. It's that Australian horror pick. Okay, whatever. So she started a podcast. Apparently from this meme thread from CoffeeZilla, which I have somewhere in the backdrop, but I don't know that we need to bring it up. She, it was getting paid speaking fees. She was milking it, and God bless her for doing it. No judgment, straight up. I'm not sure I want to be famous or rich for that, but to each their own. And then she launched not a meme coin. Is it called a meme coin or a token?
Yeah, a meme coin, I think. Yeah.
Okay, not an NFT, a meme coin. And the meme coin went from $500 to $25 in a matter of minutes. I didn't watch if it was minutes or hours, but in no time at all, once this meme coin was launched, it crashed and burnt, where people lost 90% of their investment in a meme coin. Although some people say if you invest any money in Hawk Tuah's meme coin, you deserve to lose it. But then they're talking about a thing called tokenomics, and I reached out to CoffeeZilla. If anybody knows him, I mean, he's dialed back the critique on the Hawk Tuah chick, because I'm not sure that she knows anything about what went down, pun intended. He's dialed it back a bit and said, like, she didn't make 50 million, she didn't make 5 million. She got $125,000 upfront payment, and she couldn't sell her tokens for a year, from what I understand. I'll see if I can find that. But people on her team clearly sold. They said that the team owned like 90+% or a substantial portion, and sold virtually all of it within minutes of it going public, and they cashed out and they made off and rugged, I guess, the people who were holding that steaming bag.
Which can happen a lot. And what's interesting is there are many rumors and stories so far that it's tied to Jake Paul again. So Paul keeps showing up in these allegations of fraud scandals, of promoting bogus products, of particularly in the crypto world. So it's a little bit, she seems like a face of an operation. She does not seem like she had any idea what was going on. It was just, hey, this is a new way to make money off of all this. My minute of fame, and try to be successful. No evidence she had any idea whatsoever what was going on, but took a lot of heat. But the tie to me that was interesting was the Jake Paul connection. Now, CoffeeZilla is always interesting because he kind of comes across as a prick. I don't know, at times, like, there'll be an interesting, insightful pieces. But then I heard him do like a rant on Alex Jones, and I'm like, CoffeeZilla doesn't know what the hell he's talking about for 5 seconds. So I'd like to have him on here, because I think he does a lot of really interesting stuff that's good. And he sometimes does crap where he needs to be smacked around for being dead wrong on. So because he kind of jumped on this initially and kind of started all this as if it was all her fault. Then he sort of, to his credit, pulled back and said, well, it's not clear what she really knew and didn't know. But as much as, I think he does a great show. He does an effective presentation, etc. But there's been times when he just jumps to conclusions and uses his mind of I'm exposing the fraudsters. What he thought about Alex Jones was so dead wrong. It was like, okay, that tells me you don't do your research maybe at all, CoffeeZilla. So I want to see better work from CoffeeZilla.
Well, I don't. It's funny you bring it up, because like I've been following it from Sunday, from whatever, when it happened, Friday or Thursday or Friday, and I said it sounded like he was dialing it back a bit on her, because initially he's like, post a clip. She came on a Twitter space and said, now I got to go to bed, and she hasn't posted since. And I'm like, I'm thinking, the more I think about it, like, no shit, she's not going to. She's probably gone straight to the police and is now helping them with this investigation.
Usually, if you get a good lawyer, you get a good lawyer to figure it all out before you get hung out to dry.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
I
well,
just
how
wanna-
is it that Jake Paul keeps showing up on a lot of this stuff?
I do. Maybe he didn't make enough with that. With that. No. Who's the one that fought Mike Tyson?
That
I
was
get
him
mixed
that
up.
fought Mike Tyson, right? It wasn't Logan.
That's so. He says, here, hold on, bring it up here. Lots to criticize. Going up here. Okay, can you all stop with the insane headlines? She didn't rug for 500 million. She didn't profit 50 million for F's sake. The team pre-sold a few million to strategic investors who sold early. The token got sniped. I don't exactly know what that means. LP made, what is LP? $1 million on 50. Oh, the processing made 15% fees. And where did she say? She said she got like she got 125,000 and she couldn't sell her coins for a year. And I'm like, that hardly sounds like someone in on the scheme. That sounds like someone who is sufficiently naive or maybe a little greedy. Like,
I think so. This is just an opportunity, another opportunity. Yeah, a lot of people get caught up in the meme coin stuff because they don't understand it. And so it becomes susceptible to scam artists on all sides. And like I said, I get CoffeeZilla's point. It's when I saw the reference, his take on Jones, I was like, I'm not going to trust anybody that has that bad of a take on Alex Jones. If you have that bad of a take on Alex Jones, I can't really trust anything you tell me about anybody in the future. So I would like another source, independent of CoffeeZilla, to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, here you go. Lots to criticize. The team made a few million, exact amount unknown. According to Hawk's lawyer, she's seen 125,000 and her tokens unlock in a year. That's a wild attenuation from initial. Yeah, the polls. I mean, it's people are going to get sued and there's going to be criminal investigations over this. Do you think this leads?
Maybe not. You never know. There's tons of these all over the world.
Who
but
the
isn't
hell?
this like the third or fourth one that Logan Paul's got caught up in?
He had his
none of these original ideas. It appears like even the podcast might be a Logan Paul partially sponsored event. So I get it. It's just like, okay, hold on a second. You see somebody get popular, you bring them in, and suddenly they're making a meme coin that turns out to be a scam that sounds a lot like something you were involved in about a year ago and 2 years ago. Just saying, it's starting to look not so good for Paul.
But I don't even understand how a meme coin is supposed to be anything other than a gag.
Yeah, that's true. That's its own animal. It's people's incapacity to fully understand the nature of Bitcoin, which I understand. I mean, remember Trump thought it was fake for years until 6 months ago. He was like, some sort of computer thing. That can't be real. So that's your ordinary person's perspective. It's like, well, it's a computer algorithm. Well, what is this again? That's money. How's that money? It's something on a computer or something. So you can see how. But this young generation has made tons of money off of it. So that's how they get caught up in it, no matter what. That maybe that it becomes its own. It's a huge attraction to Ponzi schemers. Pump and dumpers. What they call pulling the rug and all that. It's natural for that because what happens is it becomes something where they preach the value is its own value, right? It's one of those, you start hearing that kind of rhetoric. And there's legitimate value to Bitcoin because it's independently established and it has a limit to it. And there's and you'd have to crush the internet to take it away. That's the genius of Bitcoin simplified. These other things, these meme coins, don't share that same capacity. And so consequently, they're only as valuable as somebody thinks it is. But what happens is you get a bunch of people think, hey, can we convince a bunch of other suckers to think this has value? And that's where it's like, that doesn't fit Hawk Tuah's girl's persona. It does start to fit the reputation of people tied to Jake Paul. That's what I'm saying.
And I'm still trying to figure out how Dogecoin works versus Bitcoin because apparently I didn't think that Hawk Tuah was ever going to be used for actual transactions. Apparently Dogecoin is. Bitcoin obviously is not everywhere but more.
Altcoins is just high risk. If you're dealing with anything other than Bitcoin, you're dealing with something that's risk. I get that Ethereum and other ones have done well and have their own potential value. But as a whole, I've only vouched for, I've always thought Bitcoin had potential for the reasons of understanding fundamentals of finance and storage and exchange and things of this nature. But I don't have confidence in anything else. And everything else always sounds like it's only as valuable as you think it is. Mm-hmm. You know what? Best description of meme coins? Art. Meme coins are art. So it's pure eye of the beholder. So the meme coins are like, oh, look at this art piece. Oh, maybe it'll become super fashionable. Maybe everybody will want it. And maybe I better get it now because it's going to be worth double next year. That's what's happening in the meme coin world.
Yeah, they say XRP is having a good week. Let's see. Okay, the dog just came in. only to immediately want to go out. Hold on. Get out. Get out. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I would love to have the discussion with CoffeeZilla. I would also love to have the discussion with Hawk Tuah.
And he does, like I said, I think he is a sharp guy. He does a very sophisticated presentation. But my view has always been, if you come across somebody that in this area they're completely wrong on, you got to stop before you just immediately trust them in the future. It's just a general word of wisdom that I've always recommended. I mean, it's Michael Crichton's. What does he call it? He calls it the Geller-Mann amnesia. That you know somebody got something dead wrong in an area you're actually an expert, and yet you turn around and trust them the next time they claim to be an expert in something that you're not an expert in. You shouldn't. And that's my issue with CoffeeZilla, is that the statements he's made about Alex Jones were utterly idiotic. I mean, showed complete lack of understanding. He had spent no time investigating, no time really watching. And then it's like, okay, how can I trust that he's investigated these other things that he claims to have done? How can I have confidence in that if he gets stuff like that so wrong?
And I know you have a particular hard spot for people who get Alex Jones wrong, and rightly so. Now, I am always for a good challenge here. Before I get down to Freddie, Bozified says Bitcoin is also a pump and dump, just longer term. 80% of the Bitcoin is owned by 1% of the people. They are the ones who inflate and deflate the prices. Let's not fool anyone. But Freddie says, here's my bribe to convince you guys to ever mention woke right. That is all. Who was the one that was taking flack for talking about woke, or for
James Lindsay
for going woke right?
I think he was criticizing woke right.
Yeah,
but he gets off on a sort of his own little side issues that I really could care less about. So I think he's a very smart guy, but he'll get distracted by issues that I'll be like, why am I supposed to care about this? So
it was James Lindsay who what did he do? He got some publication to.
He got a conservative publication to print something that was a fake publication, like he got left publications to do the same as before.
Yeah, it says, this is from an article. Oh, whatever. Okay, it doesn't matter. We mentioned woke right. There you go. Speaking of woke right,
as a whole, I don't really believe. I mean, what does that even mean? Woke right, exactly.
I don't know. I mean, it's tough to even explain what woke means, but whether or not.
I mean, there's the racial right. There's the Fuentes right. Nick Fuentes, Richard Spencer right. Which said don't vote for Trump, if that's what they're referencing. But it sounds like they're referencing something else. And I've seen some references to it and related to Lindsay and other people. I was like, I don't even know what this means, and it seems like a waste of time.
Well, now that you mention Fuentes, and it wasn't on the menu, but you heard that he's been arrested for assault?
No.
Well, then we can't talk. We'll talk about it later. Go watch the video, because Nick Fuentes has been charged with assault right now. Let me make sure that it's actually
something assault. In public, or was it something personal?
No, it was a woman who showed up at his front door, who I guess he felt was harassing him, and he just the video's on the internet. He just pepper sprays her on his front steps. She drops the phone, and I don't know if she had been harassing him, if there was a history to it. Nick Fuentes arrested. So white supremacy. Sorry, the Guardian says
Illinois
charged over Chicago pepper spray incident. So
is he still living with his parents? Man, that's
well. Apparently, he doxed himself. You know what? I might have to get the video now. Let me go to Twitter and just get the video for 2 seconds. Didn't know this was going to be up here. Nick Fuentes, and let's make sure I get the right video, because there's another video that I don't want to see. Nick Fuentes pepper.
Probably not a smart decision for him to be living in the Chicago area, to be frank about it.
Here we go. Got it right here. Okay, look at this. You'll tell me what you think. I think it's unjustified. And people saying, well, she showed up to his front door. Like, I don't know if he knew who she was before he got there. So if he knew more and he knew this woman was a danger, here's the video.
Hi. Oh my God. What are you doing?
Get the fuck out of here.
Houses look exactly like houses in Westmount. Takes the phone, closes the door. That's the video. And so apparently charged, I think it's assault. But I don't know if he knew the woman, if she's stalking him, and he knew that he identified her as a danger. But that's the video.
Hi. Oh
Bam. And then I think this is the.
He's kind of screwed. It looks like that's going to be a tough self-defense argument.
She did not, and it didn't. I mean, dude, I don't know why she was recording it.
He still lives in the Chicago area. That's politically not the smart place for him. Someone like with his politics to be.
Yep. Hans Spank, or what is it? Hans 1PK says it's unjustified. Your front door has a bell for a reason. I mean, don't answer the freaking door if you don't want to talk to the person. Anyway, so he's in trouble. And if you make sure you don't get a separate video of that might come up, Nick Fuentes' video. But speaking of Destiny's sex video, I'm joking. We're not talking about that. You haven't heard about that either, Robert, eh? See, sometimes it's not a bad thing to be unplugged. Okay, let's go to Sotomayor on the trans debate, on the trans... it's the Tennessee law banning transgender care. And I don't call it care. I call it child genital mutilation is what it is. We're talking about medications, puberty blockers, if not more extreme stuff for trans kids. I mean, it's insanity. But the audio clip, actually, I should probably play the audio clip, is Sotomayor, who I think is one of the, she's I mean, I don't know who I would say is my favorite Supreme Court justice other than Clarence Thomas, but that's only because I paid attention to some of his recent decisions. I can't think of anyone. She's actually dumber and says stupider things than Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Oh, yeah, by a long mile. Sotomayor has always been both the most arrogant, dumb justice on the Supreme Court for quite some time.
So this is what she had to say about... let me make sure I'm bringing this up here. Let's go here. Let's listen to this. I mean, anyone who watched the clip I put out today has seen this.
Cannot eliminate the risk of detransitioners. So it becomes a pure exercise of weighing benefits versus risk. And the question of how many minors have to have their bodies irreparably harmed for unproven benefits is one that is best left.
I'm sorry, counselor. Every medical treatment has a risk. Even taking aspirin. There is always going to be a percentage of the population under any medical treatment that's going to suffer a harm. So the question in my mind is not, do policymakers decide whether one person's life is more valuable than the millions of others who get relief from this treatment? The question is, can you stop one sex from the other?
Can you stop one sex from the other? Robert, the panel on Friday, the Nate Uncivil, they raised a good argument that says, look, if it's a policy decision, then the state has even more power to make policy decisions as relates to medicines, treatments that are available.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a place she's going that has, I think, legal merit, which is, when does the state get to determine the medical care of a child over the objection of a parent? Is that's a play. Now, the problem is she believes the state has the right to override a parent anytime they want. This is the problem the left has, is that they don't believe in the parental right of child care. So how do they turn around and tell a state, well, okay, the state of Tennessee has decided we're not going to allow this kind of care because we don't think it's care. We think it's harm. And how do they, from a premise of the state gets to dictate to parents quick care, argue with that? They can't really. So I mean, that the problem is that they don't like where Tennessee has chosen to exercise its power, but these liberal judges fundamentally believe in the state's prerogative to exercise that power. So that's the problem. So she has to pretend this fits into some other category, that it's like the state regulating aspirin, and that it's no different between giving you treatment that will change your body forever and even prevent you from having children is the same as whether you take an aspirin after you hurt your knee and fall down on playing basketball. I mean, it's an asinine comparison. It's why most people are like, okay, these two comparisons are not the same. They're both medicine. That's true. But one of them ain't going to kill you or destroy your life. The other one will. That's the difference. And we've always said the state has the power for that. Now, I'm one that is skeptical of the state's ability to have power for this. But the left can't question the state's power because it believes in the state's power. And now Gorsuch didn't say anything. Gorsuch is the justice to watch on this case to see. But the most effective oral argument came from Alito and Thomas, who asked Thomas used to never ask questions, and over the last 8 years, ever since Trump got elected, he asks questions now, which is it's fun to watch. But what both he and Alito hammer down is, okay, is this an immutable trait or not? Because if you're arguing the 14th Amendment, and this is the argument they're saying the state of Tennessee constitutionally is prohibited from limiting the amount of child mutilation that takes place, as long as it takes place in the name of a medical setting. That's the liberal position in this case. That as long as it's doctors saying it, doctors declaring it, then there's no role for the state to restrict it, which is deeply problematic for the left because they think the state has the right to do anything they want, pretty much, as they did during COVID. That's the problem Sotomayor has. It's the problem Kagan has. That's the problem Jackson has. And they're trying to argue points from points that contradict their four core principles. Now, Thomas and Alito got the other side to admit was, don't you believe that gender is fluid? They're like, absolutely. I'm like, doesn't that mean it's not immutable? And isn't the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment all about immutable traits? Historically, it is. So if you have to have an immutable trait to be protected under the 14th Amendment, they effectively conceded to Alito and Thomas that they have no 14th Amendment claim. So I think Gorsuch is going to go with Alito and Thomas and affirm Tennessee state law, which will mean every state now has the power to limit this experimentation that's been going on. And by the way, just this week in San Francisco, another major lawsuit filed by someone who said they got tricked into doing the gender transitioning and now have suffered lifetime severe consequences. These lawsuits are coming, and they're coming everywhere. And it's because the left just got out of hand. But I think the Supreme Court will ultimately affirm Tennessee's decision because of what Alito and Thomas were able to affirm, and because Sotomayor can't come up with an intellectually consistent position as to how the state should not have the power to limit this kind of child mutilation care, but the state could have the power any other time they want to do anything else they want. That's where she can't come up with an intellectually sustainable position.
No, I made the observation, like the comparison is asinine for yet another reason, because the side effect of aspirin is different than its intended functioning. The side effects that she's comparing to with these puberty blockers are the intended purpose. So it's not a side effect; it's the effect. But also, just to refresh everybody's memory, Sotomayor, an idiot. Justice Sotomayor falsely claims 100,000 children in serious condition from COVID. Just a minor issue. I forget what the case was.
Well, she reads all the MSNBC stuff, and she cries half the time at a bunch of stuff. She's abandoned a lot of her core liberal positions that were pro-civil rights or civil liberties in the past. She's still got a few left, but many of them are gone. She's become a pure statist. But what this issue exposes is you can't be a pure statist and say the state doesn't have the right to prohibit child mutilation. You can't really do that. And so that's why the left is caught in this conundrum where they're just going to have to manufacture an interpretation of the law that has no bearing and no roots in it. And that's why I think Gorsuch will ultimately go along. Even though Gorsuch is sympathetic to people who suffer trans and other issues, he has a libertarian streak in that regard. There is just no intellectually consistent position that the left is embracing that he can embrace. And so I think he'll go along with the three centrists, Roberts, Barrett, and Kavanaugh, and join Alito, Thomas, and create a 6-3, I think, probable majority is my guess. Now, one of the grandstanders, Kavanaugh, Roberts, or Barrett, might break off and do a concurrence or something else just to show everybody how morally superior they are to the average conservative. But other than that, I think you're going to see the Tennessee law upheld.
I have difficulty disagreeing with Texas Tanya. We've been infiltrated by Satan worshiping Antichrist, war of good versus evil. It's an amazing, puberty blockers. It's just a temporary pause on puberty. These doctors deserve to get sued. The parents, unfortunately, deserve to get sued. They'll go ahead and sue each other. It'll be a circle firing squad of lawsuits. People deserve to get sued, and hopefully the idiot Sotomayor still comes to the right decision, but she won't. Sorry, Robert. I mentioned Coy Griffin earlier, but then we didn't actually get. Did we get into the?
No, we didn't.
Okay, so let's. It was fascinating because Coy Griffin, for everybody who doesn't know, he was a New Mexico commissioner, elected to the position, in good standing. is one of I mean, the only place in America, the only commissioners in America who refused to certify the vote in 2020, following what they believed, based on the statements from Trump, was a less than constitutionally legitimate election. Coy Griffin and the two other commissioners refused to certify. Went through a whole lot of hell. Two of the three ended up certifying, and Coy didn't. But Coy ended up becoming something of a political target. Ended up at January 6th on the Capitol. He's a pastor as well. That'll explain. He was on the Capitol to participate in protesting what he believed was an illegitimate, constitutionally unlawful election. Breaches the restricted area, unbeknownst to him. No violence, takes a bullhorn, says a prayer, and leaves. Goes back to DC a week and a half later, gets arrested. 2 misdemeanor charges, picketing and parading, I think, in a restricted area. And there was another charge that was ultimately either dismissed or he didn't get convicted on. He gets convicted on the breaching a restricted area. And then back in New Mexico, at the state level, gets disqualified and removed from his position of commissioner after an unsuccessful, what's the word I'm looking for? Recall campaign. Gets removed by the state court for the insurrection clause, Article 14, paragraph 3. I don't know the procedural posture as to how it got, the decision to remove got affirmed by the New Mexico Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court of the United States refused to hear it. I don't know why, but it didn't get hit. It did not get heard, but it didn't get heard before Trump's case got heard. So Trump's Colorado ruling 9-0 by the Supreme Court came after Coy Griffin. Supreme Court refused to hear him, but he's still been disqualified under the 14th Amendment, the 3rd paragraph of the Constitution, for having participated in insurrection. So that's where I interviewed him Friday. It was an amazing interview. Check it out. How does that possibly stand as precedent at a state level now?
It's solely because the Supreme Court skipped any state issue because they said that in Trump's case it was because it was the presidential election that they weren't going to decide how the 14th Amendment applies to a state office holder. They would let the states determine that on their own accord. And that allowed states like New Mexico to issue rulings that were absurd. And the only way you're going to get courts to stop doing this in the future is if you're in a conservative jurisdiction, you have to remove liberals from the ballot in office. And no conservative court will ever do that. So consequently, liberals will know they can unilaterally disqualify conservatives in liberal states without ever facing any consequence from either a federal court or from another conservative state disqualifying liberals in those states. And that's the problem. It was always an asinine and absurd interpretation of the law, but it just shows how utterly useless so many courts are. The Colorado Supreme Court ended up useless. The New Mexico Supreme Court ended up useless. Arizona Supreme Court ended up useless. Nevada Supreme Court ended up useless, making ridiculous decision after ridiculous decision. And so it's only the question is, long term, how do you build a government and society where the judicial branch keeps failing to meet its basic elemental obligations? At some point, you have to start taking power away from the judicial branch. That long term, that has to be the solution. That the experiment of a judicial branch of these philosopher kings that our founders believed might be possible as a balance and check has not worked. It's never worked, to be frank about it. It only works when the legislative or executive branch slaps the judicial branch around. So when the judicial branch comes in, decides to weaponize their political power to lock up their political opponents, like they did, like Samuel Chase was doing as the Supreme Court justice right after the founding of our country, what stopped it? It wasn't the honest courage of any judge. It was them trying to impeach Chase and threatening him with imprisonment afterwards. And all the other judges were like, oh, hold on a second. Oh, wait, we weren't that serious about what we were doing. Unless and until you do that, you're going to keep getting this crap.
It's a terrible story because the guy's, he's a religious man, and I don't know how it helps.
He's never been convicted of an insurrection. It has nothing to do with the insurrection clause. It's completely foreign to the origin of the clause. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous ruling by a politically oriented court that doesn't care about the rule of law. And that is proven until judges start facing individual consequences, or we start removing power from the judiciary, They're going to continue to abuse their. Look at what happened in Romania, right? I mean, Romania's learned the lesson from American lawfare that a right-leaning, populist-leaning leader wins the first round and is going to clearly win the second round. So what does the Romania Supreme Court come in to do at the request of the U.S. and the EU? It says, oh, we hereby declare this election invalid. It was invalid. You have to start all over again, right? I mean, I know they wanted to do that this time around. They were just terrified of what would happen. That was the only thing that prohibited them from declaring the same thing here. And so it's just a problem. And we need to either remove power from judges that behave corruptly need to face individual consequence, or we just reconsider how much power we give the judicial branch when it's led to more disaster than it's led to anything good or positive.
I'm giving everyone the link to Koi's Give, Send, Go one more time here. Check it out. Okay, but it's amazing. He's stuck with that precedent, and I don't see how he gets it overturned. Because if the SCOTUS said no, I don't know how they can. You ask them to reconsider, given the ruling in the presidential?
It'd be
issue?
difficult, but you'd have to run for another office and challenge the New Mexico Supreme Court's decision.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's actually a good way to make it happen. Okay, excellent. What?
Well, it's not like I guess I saw a headline that said they were going to take away everybody's guns again in Canada?
Oh, not just take them away, Robert. Take them away and give them to Ukraine. It's beyond words. Back in so update in Canada, people. I'm not the expert on firearms, as everybody knows from my interview with Ian Runkle of the Bailey about the CEO assassination. Ian Runkle, a Canadian, firearms. I consider him to be a specialist, and I didn't hear anyone contradict his assessment of what gun was or was not used in the killing of Brian Thompson. Back in 2020, all of you know this, Trudeau, by way of order in council, which is sort of like the, Minister of Justice, issues a recommendation. Basically, the government issues a directive and it becomes law without it having to go through any sort of speech and debate, because the legislation has built into it that further decrees can be issued by order in council. So the legislation says you can further restrict the rights, but you don't have to go through any public speech and debate, any process, by way of order in council. 2020, after the shooting in Nova Scotia, which many people believe had some fingerprints of Fed involvement or knowledge, Trudeau comes out and bans like 1,500 firearms. He inadvertently included some airsoft guns, which I think once that became known, he removed those. And they've upgraded that list now because they have to extend it to assault-style firearms, not understanding what that is. They're just adding more and more guns. And there's a terrible video of a shooting in Winnipeg, I want to say, up in Canada. It's just more and more gun restrictions, and yet gun violence goes up and up and up because the criminals have the guns and don't give a sweet bugger all. Okay, they announced that they're adding more guns to the list, and the Minister of Justice now says they're giving them to Ukraine, or they're going to explore the possibility of giving these confiscated guns to Ukraine to help them fight for independence. I mean, I made a video about it last week. I'm going to see if I can get the Minister of Justice guy. It's communism, like straight up disarming the population, empowering the criminals. Trudeau at the same time is talking about restricting use of private property for Airbnb and verbose. I don't know what that is, but private rentals.
Vacation rentals by owners.
Okay, I never heard of that one, but I'm not into. That's not my.
It actually
bag.
predated Airbnb.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, they're talking about restricting it so they can unlock homes for the housing crisis in Canada. A housing crisis created by Trudeau's terrible immigration policy. Basically, open borders. There's 5 million foreigners in Canada whose visas expire within the next 3 years that are not going to go home so willingly. And so bottom line, straight up communism to support the absolute non-democracy of Ukraine, which has now indefinitely suspended elections because of the martial law that was declared as a result of Russia's invasion, despite the fact that nightclub... I said something good in one of my videos, Robert. If you can party at a nightclub at night, you can vote for the president during the day. Period. Anyway, that's what's going on in Canada, people. So visit at your own risks and peril if you so choose. It's beautiful.
Isn't there an election upcoming?
It's going to be in 2025. They haven't called the specific date yet, but legislatively it has to be done by, I want to say September 2025, because it's every 4 years. And the coalition government's been held together by Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrat Party because they're all just clinging on to power so they can get their pensions, which Jagmeet gets his in early 2025. So it's absolute madness in Canada. Not clear it'll be any better under the Conservatives, but it's communism. Full stop, pure and simple. And it's one communist regime with great admiration for the Chinese Communist Party, supplying arms with confiscated, or at least talking about it, but they supplied arms with confiscated tax dollars to Ukraine. So
now, speaking of, you mentioned you had a conversation with him about the CEO assassination. What was your takeaway from so far from that?
That the consensus is that the individual is not a trained assassin, but someone who might be LARPing as one, but is proficient in firearms, but not an expert, or maybe hadn't done this before. Because the consensus is it was a small arm using subsonic rounds, but that may or may not be entirely accurate, with a suppressor that caused a cycling problem in the firearm. And so the individual knew how to clear the cycling problem, didn't panic, was calm, cool, and collected. But that was clearly not a professional who had tried this with.
Awfully cool for someone that's never done it before.
Well, that's why
that dude was like chills. I was like boom, boom, boom. It was like the scene from Sicario, where Benedicto del Toro says adios, boom, 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 boom. It does like that with the gun. It's actually well, I shouldn't compare it to a real murder, but that's what it reminded me of. And I was like, that's almost like sophisticated. In other words, maybe this is someone that's only been dreaming about it for a period of time, but usually you don't see that level of but other people would have better understanding of this than me. But at least from my take from studying it over the years, in these assassinations, you don't see someone that chill. That dude walks right up, boom, pops the thing, okay, clear up, boom, 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 then just walks right down, hops on the bike, and boom.
Yep.
And they still haven't caught him.
And I'm wondering if he's out of the country. And I'm just wondering if there's a foreign country connect. First of all, we can all agree there's not a snowball's chance in hell that the FBI doesn't know his name. I mean, they've got his face. There's no facial recognition software.
With all the software they got going on these days. I mean, the first thing is they clearly wanted to say poor insurance companies. That this is insurance companies being targeted. That they were saying that there was words written on the shells.
Denied, deposed, delayed, denied, deposed. I didn't yet know what the connection was, but delayed, denied, deposed.
It's what United and other insurance companies are accused of doing to people on a routine basis and denying care. It's the game that gets played by big insurance companies. But what's interesting was that that was their takeaway, was almost like you're supposed to be sympathetic to, and then you had other sectors that seemed to be gung-ho on the internet of, it's a big CEO from an insurance company, good riddance. You saw some scary mindset of you don't normally see anybody celebrate an assassination.
Well,
I didn't that, but you saw parts of it on the internet. I mean, I get I'm not a United fan, all the rest, but that was a cold-blooded assassination. I would put one caveat: this guy is connected. This United CEO, I know him from in the past for a client that I negotiated with him on behalf of. But he according to published reports, he's under criminal investigation for all kinds of insider trading.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other people that might have a serious. Put it this way: let's say you needed to assassinate him in order for him to prevent him from testifying against you. How would you cover it? You would cover it by getting someone to do it that looks like they're a hardcore anti-insurance person that tells a whole different story, so nobody ever asks, could it be the people that would have been implicated had he decided to talk? I wouldn't rule that out either. But it's right. I mean, do it in New York is kind of brazen. You got some of the top police people in the world. But the fact he got in there and out of there without a problem, and there's other people that have looked at the murder scene that I don't know what you and Ian might have thought. I saw some other people suggest that the manner of the execution suggested there was a lookout. So it suggested there was more than one person that was part of the assassination.
That we didn't get to that, and I hadn't heard that either. I mean, this looked like it was the guy had been out there staking it out and knew where the guy was going, and knew his schedule. But when I watched that, I did not, hired professional or not, I didn't feel like it was the first time this guy had killed somebody. I don't know how you
exactly.
You're not that stone cold unless you're on some serious drugs, but then you're not that coordinated either.
Correct. And that guy was just chill. I mean, you're out in a public setting. It's like I'm gonna go up right in this guy, public setting.
And kill him.
and the gun pop up and the shell pop, and I know the shell's pop and go up and make sure the second one, third one, totally cool. I don't look at anyone else. Then just walk down and get on the bike and go. That's a hardcore assassin. So that's that person's first assassination. Okay, but it makes you wonder whether we'll ever find the real one, right? We got kind of photos, kind of images, kind of this, right? Kind of makes you wonder.
By the way, I found Robert. Listen to this. This is the minister of. I want to say minister of. He's one of the ministers
Today.
What is this?
The government is adding a further 300.
Can you imagine? He looks like the evil guy out of V for Vendetta. I mean, he could not look more like a villain if he tried. I'll shut my door. Yeah, let me just make sure the volume's on. Listen to this.
And 24 unique makes and models of assault-style firearms to the list of prohibited firearms in Canada. This prohibition takes effect immediately. This means these firearms can no longer be legally used, sold, or imported in Canada, and can only be transferred or transported under extremely limited circumstances.
Wait for the flash of light. Here,
as part of that process, the government of Canada has committed to the Ukrainian government.
It's like he's emphasizing
to identify whether some of these guns could be donated to support the fight for democracy in Ukraine.
Don't you love this? Because these guns are so important to democracy that we can't let you have them. We can only let Ukraine have them.
I didn't. Yeah, that's it. You don't need them. They need them for democracy.
These guns are critical for democracy, just not critical for you.
Leave your fobs at the front door so the armed criminals take your car. That's all that they want. They don't. They got real guns. They're not toy guns. That was a police officer in York, Ontario, actually said that. We got one more, I think, on the menu here. Where's my list here?
We got we got the COVID report, and then the Florida. I highlighted this, but I didn't actually get the chance to research it further. The Florida drone shooter.
Dude, Robert, I don't think it's rocket science. And I think Bronca and I agree. I was just trying to play not devil's advocate, trying to steel man both sides of this. Let's do the COVID, because I'm actually going to go find the video of the guy who shot it. The COVID report comes down, Robert. Nobody's taught. Like, well, I feel like I'm not the only one, but there's only been a handful of voices putting it on blast, confirming everything except for the fact that they still assert that Operation Warp Speed was still very good. I know Jones talked about it. I know I put it on as much blast as humanly possible. The Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, which is going on since February 2023, came to their findings, and I mean literally, that it's not a conspiracy theory that it originated in Wuhan, China. That NIH was engaged in gain-of-function research, that Dr. Drazak should never again receive $1 of taxpayer funding because he's part of this entire crime against humanity, and that Fauci lied under oath. They didn't say it in quite so many details, but they said it was the result of gain-of-function, that they were engaging in gain-of-function research. Fauci denied it. He lied. What were some of the other ones? That the government was spewing propaganda. They should have been listening to frontline workers, not issuing decrees to ban medications. That Americans want to be educated, not indoctrinated. Everything, and it disappears into the ether like nobody wants to talk about it. I mean, forget feeling vindicated. What's your take on this? Why is the world not up in arms, and why are people, why are proverbial institutions not burning to the ground right now?
Well, really only because the institutional media kept a lid on it to such a degree that that many people still only partially processed it. That the full nature of the conclusions that have been reached over the last year. There's still people who don't believe it had anything to do with gain-of-function research. And I mean, because they haven't read the actual data, the underlying reports, or the information, or listened to the most relevant people. And I think that's what basically. But what it is everything the person who was most right was Jones, because I talked to Jones very early on, early March of 2020, and he was the first person to tell me why he believed, based on people he had talked to, that this was a bioweapon that had gotten out of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And he was super confident, and he explained, because he talked to Francis Boyle, one of the leading lawyers in bioweapons research in the world, but he'd also talk to others. And it was like everything points to this being a bioweapon that got released. And the only question is, did they do it deliberately or not? Because that's really it. But he's been proven absolutely correct as to what took place. And I think, in credit to some people who talk to, like some people talk to Tucker and others, like Amaryllis Fox, who was the campaign manager for Robert Kennedy's campaign, and she did an interview with Tucker Carlson, and she pointed out that a likely reason that they had not implicated our bioweapon or China's bioweapons research is because our bioweapons research was involved. People forget way back at the very beginning, you had Jones saying this was a leak, and you had China's own high-ranking government officials initially put out on Twitter that this came from the U.S., that this was part of the U.S. Defense Department program that from North Carolina. And then China took it down about a day later. And since then, that's been kind of the détente. In other words, if you ask for reparations from China, China gets to turn around and ask for reparations from the United States, because the source of this particular research was the United States. It was stopped by even the Obama administration, of all people, in 2014. And so Fauci conspired with Daszak and others to get it funded in China instead. And the goal was to keep it going. They were also funding it in Ukraine. There are secret bioweapons research labs all across Ukraine. And so that's what Ukraine is all about. And that's what the COVID was in part all about, was covering up our continued bioweapons research, which should never have happened. By definition, gain of function research violates bioweapons treaties. And they just pretend it doesn't. For those that don't know, gain of function means you take a virus and you give it an additional, more dangerous capacity, hence additional function. You make it either more viral or more lethal. And they did it with both, with COVID.
Yeah. And more violent, that it will potential jump from they gain a function to make it go from animal to animal to animal to human, which is apparently
and to make it more infectious,
transmissible.
Yeah, transmissible and more lethal, which is hard to get, because generally speaking, the more lethal a virus is, the less it will be able to spread, because it kills off too many of its hosts. And it was trying to pull off both, and that's what it did. And it was the principal culprit was the U.S. through China and COVID, through China and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But it starts with the U.S. And that's why the U.S. can't ever be honest about it, is it comes back to Fauci, comes back to our bioweapons research. We shouldn't be doing these bioweapons research. We shouldn't have gain of function. It should be illegal. It should be considered a violation of all the treaties that say you don't do this. The theory is this: we have to go and create this unique weapon because somebody else might be creating this unique weapon. And we're not creating this unique weapon to make it a weapon. We're creating it purely for defensive purposes. I mean, it's a patent lie. Everybody knows, everybody's involved in this research is lying. Doesn't matter whether it's the Russians, the Europeans, who it is, they're lying. Everybody knows there's nobody who's researching the exact same virus at the exact same time in the exact same way in order to try to circumvent your defenses against it. You're doing this in order to try to create a virus that can be a weapon. That's what they were doing. And you have to ask yourself, the timing was mighty convenient to take out Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to ask, was it really an accident? And I think there's fair questions as to whether that was the case when you go back and read some of the statements that Fauci made 3 or 4 years before about how it was inevitable that it was coming. Bill Gates talking about it was inevitable that it was coming. His coronavirus 2019 conference that was happening while coronavirus was being released in China. What an extraordinary coincidence that is. I mean, at some point, it's the coincidences are adding up in a direction that requires you to believe the incredulous to believe it wasn't a conspiracy.
I want to bring this up because you mentioned this, and we're researching it so that we know how to fight it. So we're creating it so that we have, we know what Harvey Risch. You could go watch this. Camus posted the clip, and I won't play the whole thing, but Harvey Risch, I've had him on the channel twice now, and he's incredibly smart. I'll see if this is the right point here.
This goes to my sarcastic comment about disproportionality, that from a military perspective, if one is attacked by a bioweapons agent, then why would one have to respond with a bioweapons agent? One could respond with economic warfare, conventional weapons, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, if it was that bad. That we have at our disposal a whole range of responses. And to launch an untested bioweapon as a response, where we might not even be able to protect ourselves from blowback from that agent, to me is insane.
Okay, we can pause it right there. The rationale for doing gain-of-function research is, well, they're doing it, so we need to preemptively create a vaccine for their bioweapons, even though they're not going to be the same bioweapons. And so we got to have a bioweapon to strike back at their bioweapon. And Harvey's 1,000% right. It's insanity. Why would you need to respond with an out-of-control bioweapon if your enemy is developing an out-of-control bioweapon? What's just shocking, it confirms everything. It confirmed, I want to say it confirmed. Oh, that's right. While they went on to say, Operation Warp Speed was a smashing success and saved millions of lives, whatever. Okay, fine. It's a Republican who's chairing the committee. They called the vaccine a therapeutic, Robert. They said it's the vaccine, which could probably more, I don't know if it's more accurately, which could be probably accurately, referred to as a therapeutic. They called people anti-vax conspiracy theorists for saying that it was a therapeutic back in the day. So it's shocking. It's amazing. And the fact that people don't care, or some people don't care, or choose not to care is even more shocking. Now, Robert, if this is the video, we're not going to play the whole thing either, but guys saying what happened.
House and you shoot at it?
The cop.
I'm gonna be real blunt with you and ask.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, why'd you shoot at it?
Okay, I want to play from the beginning here.
At some point today, did a drone fly over your house and you shoot at it? I'm gonna be real blunt with you and ask.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, why'd you shoot at it?
Because I thought it was somebody and turn around playing games on my house.
I got you. Where did you see the drone at?
Right above me.
What, can you walk out and just kind of show me?
Right there.
Sitting straight above it?
Straight above me.
Do you have any idea?
Hovered.
Lowered a rope.
Some kind of cord down or something. Turned around and sent something back up. And then after it was shot at, it turned around and went north.
Gotcha. Okay. What'd you shoot at it with?
9mm.
Okay. All right.
The cop can't believe
How
it.
much trouble on my end?
Quite a bit. You've been honest with me. I'm gonna be honest with you. Quite a bit, actually.
Okay, let's pause it there. At one point, the cop actually laughs and says, I can't believe you're answering these questions. There's no violation of rights because they didn't yet read him his Miranda rights.
Right, correct. This is how cops like to do this. Hey, how you doing? Da, da, what happened? Da, da. And your honest, naive people go, da, 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 da. Whereas your smart people realize, talk to my lawyer, come back when they're here.
Let me see. I'm not going to be able to find the Pop brothers at law. Cops going to talk to you? Shut the. How you doing? Very good.
You can tell, nice old school guy who's like, what the heck is this drone doing? Trying to do something sneaky in my house? I'm going to defend my house.
Bronk and I were not having a disagreement. I'm like, I'm on the fence. I'm inclined to say reckless discharge of a firearm. You can't just pop shot off in the air. If a kid dies because that stray bullet lands somewhere, I was just defending my property. Flip side, the drone's coming down, lowering a rope. You have no idea what the hell it's doing. I can see both arguments, but that man should have shut his mouth and not said a damn word to the cops because he cannot stuff the poo-poo back in that horse that just came out. Robert, Kenzie 67. Viva.
Did they end up charging him or no?
Oh, yeah. They charged him.
What did they charge him with? Reckless endangerment?
I want to say reckless discharge of a firearm.
Oh, just reckless disregard. But he was doing it for his own self-defense. So they're denying. They're saying he didn't have a right of self-defense.
Well, he'll raise his defenses, I guess, when he goes to court. He'll say defensive property, but they'll say the legal question is: can you still have reckless discharge of a firearm in the lawful exercise of self-defense?
It's not reckless if it's self-defense.
Yeah, well, but you brand.
The one precludes the other. If it was reckless, it wasn't self-defense. If it was self-defense, it is not reckless as a matter of law. Usually,
that's going to be an interesting. It'll be that those are my only thoughts. I think, but I'm
they have better things to do than to harass some old guy who didn't like of all the things that I mean, you got plenty of people to arrest if you're in the state of Florida. Is that guy really the priority?
I don't know, shooting a gun. I mean, it's world class silliness. But I'll follow the story, and hell, maybe I'll go to the trial when it happens. Let me read these off before we head on over to Viva Barnes Law After Party. Fleet Lord Avatar, hell no, Barry Sordo, who funded build bioweapon labs in UA and tested the local people, gets credit. He stopped funding in the US, and it was a method to move it overseas. Yeah, absolutely. Kenzie, please promote the problem with Bill C-293, the Pandemic Preparedness Act. Splitting C-63 Online Harms Act still inhibits free speech. Cheers. Screen grab that. I'll look at that. Andrew Matthews says the Wellrod 32 looks like the shooting. Check out Forgot Weapons. I'm relying on Ian. He says it's not a Wellrod. Karantov says, you guys forget to thank Putin. Syria got rid of their chemical bioweapons under Obama. Did they? I don't think they did.
They said that they did.
Texan Patrick says, I've always hated lawyers till I found Viva and Barnes. Now I like to get Sticks and Ham on here. Get Sticks on here ASAP. We had him on a long time ago. Could do it again. We still have to have our circumcision debate because I know that he's very much not a fan of it. And then Freddie says, I'm an idiot. I didn't mean to ever. I meant never. It was a joke, but I'm sick of it on X. Kissin called Tucker an example of woke right today. Anyhow, I think anybody calling anyone woke right on the right is woke right. That's what I'm going to say. I'll pull that double fakie on them. There was a couple of, there's a $50 tip in our community, Rob. We're going to get to all of them, but I want to read this. Would you retweet our neighbor's house burnt down Wednesday? All lost, humans safe, pets lost. The link is there. I'm reluctant to share it because I very much need to vet things before I give the impression that I'm promoting them. It's a GoFundMe. I'm not sharing it because it's GoFundMe, but they should be using Give, Send, Go. John Ron is JOHNRHON. Thank you for that. Love our Sunday nights, says AH Orlando. Then we got Buffalo Betsy says, can y'all talk about the Vermont Supreme Court allowing schools to vaccinate kids against their parents' wishes? And they said PrEP Act protected the school decision. Robert, have you heard that?
Oh, they mean Vermont?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're vaccinating the kids and then saying the school is protected. That's how you get a parent to do something unlawful.
Well, it's really it's just bad policy, and that's why we need people like Robert Kennedy at the Health and Human Services.
Holy hell! Someone vaccinates my kids without my vaccinate. I'm not even calling it. Jab
well, I mean, in DC they were doing it with McDonald's trucks. You know, Ronald McDonald's is here for you and take care of your kid and do a checkup on your kid. And while you weren't looking, they were injecting their kids with COVID vaccines.
Holy shit! I mean, that's how you elicit an unlawful, a violent response from a parent. Okay, we're going to go over to locals. There was nothing. We did it all. It was great. We'll get into some other good stuff on locals. Viva Barnes Law.
Walmart? Was it a Walmart delivery? If he shot a Walmart delivery drone, he should be given an award. He should not be in prison. He should be given an award.
There are no delivery drones. My fat fingers are not working. I don't believe there are delivery drones in Florida.
Okay.
They don't have delivery drones. Let me see here. Walmart drone deliveries meet gun owners shooting. July. No, but that's July. Oh, that's an older video. No, but they don't have delivery drones in
If it's
Florida.
Walmart, yeah, they deserve to be shut down.
Can you hold on? No, it's not possible. Does Florida have drone delivery Walmart? It's not possible. No Walmart is ending drone deliveries as of August 2024. Well, I guess they had it. Holy crap. What could possibly go wrong? Drone deliveries. I'm going to get myself a pet falcon with the little mesh thing, and I'm going to take down those drones. That's it. Get your butts on over.
Everybody was scared. Wasn't that just an iguana? Everybody was scared.
It was just an iguana, Robert.
Everybody screamed so loud, though. It was like so dramatic. It was like you're watching a horror movie. You're waiting for something to come out and boom.
Did you see the iguana flipped? It's like the iguana.
Yeah, it was scary. It was terrifying of you guys. It was like, I gotta get out of here.
I don't care. I'm not scared of it. My wife couldn't.
Little guy's gonna put me in iguana soup.
One day, I'm looking for a place to get iguana tacos. Robert, what do you have coming up this week?
Hoping some judges get some continuances in some cases to finish the health recovery. But we'll see. You never know with some judges. They sometimes force you to show up places anyway. So that's otherwise will be. I think I'm going to try to do what are the odds to finish off the year with Richard Barris tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, if that works with his schedule. And otherwise, we'll have some bourbons back as I'm getting better as the week goes along.
I'm going to tomorrow.
And we got some college football playoffs coming, and some other for those that like some American sports, University of Tennessee football program is going to be in the playoffs against the great Ohio State University up in Columbus. So that'll be a big game. So that'll be fun, and I'll be heading back home pretty soon to Tennessee to if I can travel. I think I will be able to. So to get back together with family for Christmas.
Fantastic. And for me, by the way, so tomorrow, Ian Carroll in studio at Locals. It's going to be amazing. Tuesday, I've got Hearts of Oak. It's before I even misdescribe it, it's going to be COVID related. It's an interview on Tuesday. Thursday, I might be in studio again at Locals with Mike Benz because I DM'd him.
Yeah,
and
that'd be great.
Oh yeah, I said Mike, like we need to have an entire episode.
Does he live down there, or does he just happen to be in town?
I don't know if he lives there, but he's close enough to the studio that it looks like we're going to make it happen once I can confirm the studio. And we're going to do like just a full an episode on Burisma, because the Burisma and tangential rabbit holes is mind blowing. That will be Thursday, Wednesday, probably in Usual Suspects. Podcast people, it will be up on podcast tomorrow. And let's go over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com. I'll give everyone the link. If you want to come. If you don't, I will see you all tomorrow on the flip side, Dude Meisters, and we're going to go do our chats and our Locals thing there. How do I do this? I'm going to go end now, and Locals supporters only. See you on Locals. Everyone else, peace out, peeps. Booyah. 30 seconds to become a local supporter. Let's go all the way here. Let's go all the way up to the top, all the way up. Keep going. Load more messages, and we're going to take questions. Here we got Mrs. Pickles. Viva Fry, can you do a show strictly on Locals Rumble merger? How to do if you don't have a Rumble account, and if you don't have a Rumble, okay. If your Rumble account has a different username for the after party. So by the way, Robert, I'm going to get some clarification on this, because as of 2025, they're going to ask everybody who's only on Locals to also create a Rumble account, which you don't need to use. It's just so that they can streamline things. But there are some legit questions that I got to ask. I pay for 3 different Locals and pay Rumble Prime, as well as have Locals, as well as have a wallet on the Locals. Does that transfer over as well? I screen grabbed that. I want to ask all those questions. Mrs. Pickles. Barnes, Viva. When merged with Rumble, will we still be able to select content playlists to get Robert's Hush Hush without scrolling forever to find them? Will the community still be able to post too, besides in the live chat? I think so. I'll get answers to all of that, Mrs. Pickles, and that is a promise. Felicia B says, so glad to hear you're doing better, Robert. I'm continuing to pray for your full healing. What are some ways Kash Patel could trim the flight wings of the FBI?
I would ask all the top people to resign, step down. And I would put out the word, anybody who steps down, we're not going to worry about. Anybody who doesn't step down, and it turns out did some bad things over the last 5 years, is in the crosshairs. It's a motivation for all the bad actors to just retire and cash in now, so we can put in honest and honorable people at the highest ranks of the FBI, because he's going to need that in order to be able to get anything done at that agency, which is so corrosively corrupt and has been from its birth by J. Edgar Hoover.
We got Keep Up the Work, Make Science Great Again, says USMC Burroughs. Susie C.
Great appointments at NIH and those places.
Yep.
I mean,
Bhattacharya is amazing.
Absolutely fantastic. All thanks to COVID. And it was COVID opened the door to some of the nastiest, scariest people on the planet. Most of them occupy positions of power in public health. And at the same time, brought in all these nerds and data people and conscientious people and independent people. It red-pilled a whole bunch of people, from Robert Kennedy to Elon Musk. Were red-pilled by what happened with COVID. These are people that were already politically independent, but they were radicalized by what took place during COVID. And now we're going to get some of them in key positions of power, hopefully to permanently fix the nonsense that is rampant at so many governmental agencies, or at least start the process of healing a broken republic.
We got, see here, Sea Waiver Drive or Sea Waiver DR. There are trans athletes competing in the women's age groups for USA Cycling Cyclocross Championships in Louisville, Kentucky next weekend. That's amazing. Chrissy, can she not be charged with threatening violence and encouraging violence? Here in Ireland, you could, but it's probably getting the same here, different treatment for the left. I don't think that's an imminent. I don't know. That's not an imminent threat under. I would imagine would qualify.
Not under U.S. law. I mean, it's true. I mean, everywhere else you can
Yeah, that's not
prosecute
like
them for whatever insane thing that you want.
no. You don't want to turn America into Ireland. No, in terms of free
exactly.
speech. No offense. In New York case,
the whiskey and beer, Irish.
In the New York case, can the defense file an emergency appeal of the judge's legal error? I presume not, Robert.
Nope.
Would you retweet? I got that one. Can you pardon treason?
Yes, you can pardon any federal crime.
USA Israel should be proud to strengthen ISIS Al Qaeda. The Dread Robert, I got that before. This historic life. I'm hopefully graduating Rutgers Law in May. I want to wear a Viva Barnes law. Let's wear a law graduation cord. What are the Viva Barnes colors? I'm also wearing the red, white, and blue veterans cord. Do we have cords? I don't know. You have to go to Viva Fry to see the merch.
We should get some. Maybe we should get some. Absolutely.
What's a cord?
It's that thing you go like this.
A tap.
Oh, yeah, like the taff. Yeah, the thing comes falls down like this, and you. Okay, I think that's what it is.
I'll see. Let me
have some specific ones for law. I thought.
Okay, let me see if I'm going to screenshot.
It's been a while since I've been in that.
Which groups does U.S. fund all of? Which groups does U.S. fund all of these terrorist groups? Says Mrs. Pickles. Gidget Barnes, do you think Trump will get rid of Marco Rubio? I would presume only if he misbehaves.
Yeah, I think Rubio will be okay.
Chrissy says, my dad worked in Saudi Arabia, Libya, Yemen. Back in the day, he always used to say the countries were thriving. He would always say that to us as a teenage years, we would get too carried away with agreeing with the BBC. Who are we to get these countries to dictate their ways?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sorry about that. Took me years to figure out. Yep. Took me years to figure out what he really meant. He always would leave the things with a caveat to leave us thinking. I guess I can thank him for critical thinking. Barnes, ask G for a friend. What store you thoughts on Loy Brunson SCOTUS? What's Loy Brunson SCOTUS case?
I mean, that Supreme Court's never going to take that. So that's not going anywhere. That's the case we've talked about in the past where they were going to get a bunch of stuff overturned on the election.
Says here we might need to go back to the Polk border. That is from NetJess.
Did you see the latest? There's one asking about that I probably would run if I saw an iguana standing up. Somebody put that in the live chat.
Well, no, the amazing thing is the video that I didn't get was the iguana was on the wall and it looked exactly like one of the fixtures that we have, which is and it's a stucco wall.
That would have freaked you out. So who saw it first? Did she see it first?
I'm live with the guys and I hear people screaming from the garage where I thought something bad was happening. Like I told the guys, like, I got to leave. And I go up there and my wife is crying with laughter. But no, the thing I think it chased them into the garage because it was so cold. They were looking for warmer places to warm up. Apparently, is the
right.
GW420 says, "Hey Viva, can I shamelessly plug my Rumble channel I started? An average gamer, longtime Rumble investor decided to try what I was Longtime Rumble investor decided to try what I was investing in beyond consuming. I mainly play and stream Space Marine 2, Overwatch 2, and Marvel Rivals. If anyone wants to game together, feel free to message. That is GW420. I wonder if the 420 has to do with marijuana. 3SC01 Barnes asking for a friend. What are your thoughts on the Brunson SCOTUS case? Okay, I think we got that. Buffalo Betsy, happy to see you sounding so good, Barnes. God is good. Odin of the North, any idea what the hell is happening with James Lindsay? He seems to be trying to cause a split with Trump supporters, calling everyone, including Tucker and Dave Smith, woke right. I did enjoy his takedown. I did enjoy this takedown of him, and I'll watch that one afterwards. I think
he's a smart academic guy, but who tends to get caught in rabbit holes. That's been my take on James for a while. So I think he's a very smart guy. He gets caught going down rabbit holes I could care less about. And sometimes the rabbit holes are really interesting and have universality of value and utility. And sometimes they have no value. And, so that's just James is my take, just my takeaway from him. I've nothing against him. I'm just saying a lot of these side fights, I'm like, why? Well, what's the compelling cause to get into this fight or on that issue at this time? I just don't see that.
No, and also sometimes it almost feels like a troll that is taken too far. Concert Chick says, if Millie gets a pardon, can he still be court-martialed? I would say no.
Yeah, he can still be court-martialed, absolutely. But that doesn't take away his military punishment. It just takes away.
Oh,
I think. I mean, I haven't thought it through all the way, but I would think the military punishment can be separate.
SH Silver, as someone from Lebanon, I prefer all of Iran, US, Saudis, and Israel. Get the hell out. The government has been so warped by foreign powers using the various religious sects to pit the population against itself to the point where the national army has been left so weak that the country relies on Hezbollah for defense.
Yeah, that's exactly right, sadly.
Robert, some people are suggesting Carrie Lake move back home in primary. Ernst, I prefer someone else. Any names? This is from NetJess.
There's a I know Steve Dace is thinking about it, but there's some big names in Iowa. The Attorney General is thinking about it. The Republican female Attorney General is thinking about challenging Ernst.
And we got Dread Robert. This is from Dread Robert. Are there any laws that can be used to pursue the Nikki Haley types for corruption and influence?
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of they've broken every law that's already on the books concerning it. It's just about enforcing it. The powers that be have no interest in it.
SC808, how can you fight a journalist who makes up fake sources to spread lies and about somebody and refuses to identify the fake sources because they are protected?
Yeah, it depends on the state. Only in a few states are they actually protected.
Robert, how do we get the... that was from SEC808. Then we got Doc. No, Robert, how do we get the 17th Amendment repealed? How do we organize and make it happen? 17th Amendment.
That's a long ways off. So that's the direct election of senators that was supposed to be used as a way for people to have more control. And instead, it's become a way for them to have 6-year guaranteed terms where they can do whatever they want and ignore the voters. So I favor something different. Rather than trying to refight the 17th Amendment, which isn't going to get anywhere, it's to grant a right of recall of United States senators. And that would probably need to be done constitutionally so that voters can recall senators who betrayed them. And that would stop a lot of the degree of betrayal that takes place.
Legit, serious question here, actually. Interesting question. Why are we just assuming Democrats will vote against the nominee? As I remember, nominees usually aren't party line voters, right or wrong.
Democrats are smart and savvy and know how to stay politically unified. However, do not be surprised if you do see some Democratic break off in support of Tulsi Gabbard and Robert Kennedy.
That'd be great. Urban Femme. What about Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue? I think they're bad picks.
They are, absolutely. Trump rewarded them because they stayed loyal late in 2020, but they're corrupt millionaires and almost billionaires who are being given government positions who don't deserve them.
Someone just said
he's putting them in positions that don't matter. Like to a degree, ambassador to China, Trump's going to dictate that policy. So that's just symbolism for Perdue. And the same with Loeffler, Small Business Administration. That's a symbolic position mostly.
All right. And we got Junkman611. If it ain't Bitcoin, it's shitcoin. Beavis Wallace, still McCall, Texas. What territory or countries in the region would Israel take if it could? In other words, does Israel have plans for expansion? I'm pro-Israel, just FYI. It doesn't have the population for expansion.
So, no. Yeah, I mean, I think it would like a little bit more space for its security vis-a-vis Syria and some other places. But I don't see it being uber expansionist in that regard.
Well,
its expansionism has always been connected to its perceived security.
Yeah, and I was just watching a documentary on the various types of nuclear weapons and the power that they have when the devil, is it called the Satan II that Russia has? It's got multiple nuclear bombs in it, and it just like pepper sprays them as it flies. It's
nuclear powered. Torpedoes, for crying out loud. That's Trump's point. He's like, there's no winning that war with Russia. So let's figure out how we exit and move on.
I watched it Sunday morning. I wake up, just decide to watch a little nuke documentary on CommiTube. Check out the latest interview with Malice on Malice with Cernovich on the woke right and James Lindsay. Oh, definitely check that out, actually, and maybe get Cerno back on. If it ain't Bitcoin, it's shitcoin. That was from This Historic Life. Kimmy Hunt. Can I get Barnes' input? And then it's a screen grab. It says Trump is nominating over on Truth Alina Habba for counselor to the president, Christopher Landau for deputy secretary of state, Michael Needham for counselor of Department of State, Michael Anton for director of policy planning at State Department. Except for Habba, who are these people?
Anton's really good. Anton's the Claremont guy. Anton's the 2016, the election is the equivalent to the United Airline that went down. That was him who got real famous at least in a lot of intellectual circles. So he's a leader on sort of the populist, nationalist, right intellectual world. Anton's a real deal. That's very good to see Anton in a key position in the State Department. That's promising.
I have no
Some of
idea.
the other people are just sort of mid-tier. Some of them are quality. Some of them I'm not a big fan of, but Anton I am a big fan of.
Needs 30 to get seen. That's from K. Trimbach, which I presume means coins, and I've been reading all of them actually, just because I'll go down here. Dread Roberts says, except for the state having the drug laws as well, is she going full libertarian? I don't know who that's about. Schnookums, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that means to correct me if I'm wrong. Regardless of which transition is involved, isn't a common thread is the result is in sterilization. How can that be a decision by a minor or a parent? Where did the reproductive rights go? Yeah, well, that is the issue with the puberty blockers. They're not a pause. They are. You have
They're
a
permanent. They're permanent.
finite window.
They scar and cause permanent pain, and deprive
it's
people of fundamental rights.
It causes a micro penis. The penis doesn't grow. It causes them to not be able to climax. It causes bone density. It's just it's child genital mutilation and human experimentation. Tony the Hat, time for cheeky dark Jamaican rum. Hoisting a glass for your continuing recovery, Mr. Barnes. We got Bender is great.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Robert, yeah, Bender is great. What's going on with the Dinesh 2000 Mules retraction?
So he's been sued everywhere, and they've nitpicked little stuff, and so he's sporadically issued small retractions and corrections. So they looked at every single thing, and they'd say, well, this one person that you thought was this person's actually that person. So now that's a libel claim, that kind of routine. And because enough judges allowed the cases to progress when normally they would have dismissed them, he's been put in this position of constantly issuing these little corrections and little retractions.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that the trust, the Truth to Vote company, my experience in following them is I think they mean very well, but they're not always as airtight as they need to be, because they don't come from a legal world. So from a legal world, when you're wanting to make an allegation, you want to make it as airtight as you can. Mm-hmm. Every factual basis for it, every inference in support of it. For example, I just filed suit on behalf of Robert Kennedy in Maine against an individual who kept libeling him. This guy wouldn't stop. So the guy libels him. When Kennedy goes over to Germany and you're out Europe, those massive speeches condemning what was happening with COVID and the lockdowns and the taking away kids' rights to go to school and parents' rights to control their kids' education and healthcare, and the mask mandates and the social distancing and destroying businesses and denying basic civil liberties. Kennedy was probably the quickest American leader on that anywhere in the world. A parallel to it, to be honest with, was Alex Jones. Wherever you saw lockdown protests first in America, you will find Alex Jones supporters at the foundation of it. That's why they hate him so much. They're so irascibly independent and good-willed when you get to know him. Like Owen Schroyer, same way. Very good-hearted, a guy who was constantly targeted. That's a guy, by the way, he also should be pardoned. I get he's already served his sentence, but he should be pardoned. It was ridiculous that he was ever prosecuted for politically motivated reasons. But all of those sort of fit into that sort of same pattern. And the need to refute it will come with Trump doing a thorough, comprehensive lawfare committee type effort. But there was something else that you were just asking about that I forgot.
No, I think that was it. That was it. I forgot if I had anything at the. Okay, so hold on a second. Regardless of whether COVID was intentionally released, is anyone investigating whether or not it was intentionally spread after the initial release? California's policies early in the pandemic, for example, around the cruise ship. That's from Sandy Paws.
All of it did. It was done to maximize impact. They knew that people being inside increased the risk of the virus spreading, and yet they demanded people stay inside. They knew that people flying had the lowest risk because they had structured the airline's air filtration system to where it would filter out most viruses. And this include COVID. There was no incidents, documented incident of air travel mass spreading the virus. And yet they made it sound like it would. So that people would travel by means, like by train. Like take New York. They cut off a bunch of the trains. They forced people to take the train, the metro, the subway, and then they forced them to be stacked and packed in cars because they took away most of the train cars. So they did, and then they put them in hospitals where they put them in wings where they knew people were already infected, guaranteeing it would spread more. Then there's the remdesivir, which they learned early on didn't work and actually accelerated death. Then there was the masks and the ventilators, which they should have known early on was actually causing more death than it was saving. I mean, it was the biggest mass murder in American history, and nobody so far has faced a single consequence from it except get rewarded for it.
Well, now that you mention it, they the summary there, the select subcommittee on coronavirus response identified Cuomo as having participated in a cover-up, a malpractice, and participated in the cover-up of the numbers resulting from his malpractice. He killed people, hid it, covered it up.
And that's a reminder. What it was is Robert Kennedy was talking about these issues. This guy writes for the Daily Kos. I think his name is Vickery, but he hides his name. He goes by Downeaster Dem or whatever, and says that he's a German translator, and that he's come across a German newspaper which has an article about what Robert Kennedy was doing in Germany. And he claims he's just translating the newspaper. And he says the newspaper says that Robert Kennedy was coordinating with the neo-Nazi party of Germany at creating the rally and organizing neo-Nazis to oppose COVID lockdown policies. All false, completely fictitious, totally fabricated. Had nothing to do with anything. Then on top of that, they said that Robert Kennedy had killed 250,000 African American people, had helped spread this some measles outbreak, multiple measles outbreaks, and wanted the death of Black and Jewish people, and said that COVID was designed. I mean, it was like the guy just kept amplifying the lies. So we sue in New Hampshire during the election season. We get a bad federal judge who's like, "No, you can't sue here." So we're like, "Okay, well, where can we sue?" And the guy thought he got away with it because he thought, "Oh, I'm outside my statute of limitation because I hid my name the whole time." And so we figure out he lives in Maine. Well, in Maine, when you republish a lie, it's a continuing tort. It extends the statute of limitations. Dimwit was so excited about taking out Kennedy that in October of 2023, he starts extending and expanding the lies, desperate to get Kennedy out of the Democratic primary process. It's like all of a sudden he's killing people, mass murder, once racial homicide. I mean, like every nutty allegation you could possibly make. So we had to file suit again. Again, we asked the guys, quit making these false statements. Issue a retraction, correction, stop doing it. You're lying. You were pretending to be translating. You weren't translating anything. You're a Democratic Party hack. It appears that he or somebody connected to him has ties to intelligence agencies. And it's like, okay, just stop this. He refuses. He keeps amplifying it. And he thought he was out. He thought he was off. He's like, oh, now he can just lie forever because I got away with it from this New Hampshire judge. Nope, that's not how that works. The New Hampshire judge said there's no jurisdiction to sue. What does that mean? It means no merits getting resolved. It means now we filed suit in Maine, and now he has to answer the complaint in Maine and has to deal with it in Maine. But Robert Kennedy's still having to deal with this insanity just because he's asserting basic beliefs. And I'll give credit. All of a sudden, you're seeing people like Bernie Sanders, John Fetterman, others say, you know what, Kennedy's kind of got a point. Our food really is kind of crap. We are really involved in sort of mass killing our kids. And if they start losing that bridge, if people like Bernie Sanders start endorsing Robert Kennedy, maybe endorse Tulsi Gabbard, who previously endorsed him, then there's some real populist left-right mojo for Trump.
Fantastic. Excuse me. We've got Jedi Boar 1971. Sidney Powell vindicated by the Texas Court of Appeals against the Texas Bar Association. The 24-page ruling absolutely thrashed the bar, even accusing them of lying. You have to be a damn fool and abjectly stupid not to see what happened here. A quote in the opinion, great show against gents. I'm going to see if I can get that.
Yeah, that was an excellent opinion. It was the second time the Texas courts have struck down the insane actions of the Texas State Bar, targeting people like Sidney Powell for purely politically motivated reasons. That's all that ever was. The attacks on Rudy Giuliani in New York and Atlanta were purely political. And these other cases it's the same animal. They're purely political targeting. And that's where my answer has been not to disbar our opponents. It's to disbar the bar. We need to get rid of the power of the state bar and the Supreme Court controlling who gets to practice before it. That has always been problematic. In my view, has never been constitutional. And we're seeing how politically weaponized it is and will continue to be, that we have to take away their power for forever because they're too dangerous with it.
Love our Sunday nights. That's AH Orlando. Dread Robert. Makes sense to me. The government decided to pretend our property rights on go to a certain height of depth to F people over. Bayou Nola. What are your thoughts about Trump meeting with Macron and the little man from Ukraine? I mean, he's trying to make a
Trump
peace
is
deal in
trying
Europe.
to get a peace deal done in both the Middle East and Europe, but as soon as he gets into office. And the deep state is doing everything possible to make that impossible.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to escalate. Now, their biggest problem is going to be they can get away with it in the Middle East because there's too many crazy, unreliable people on all sides. They're not going to be able to get away with it in Europe because Putin's not stupid. It's like, whatever you think of Putin, if you don't like him, that's fine. Have at it. Man is one of the smartest leaders on the world stage.
Mm-hmm.
And he will maneuver a way to get resolution in the Ukraine to help Trump meet that objective. And then it'll be, can Trump restore peace in the Middle East that now is aflame again due to both Gaza and Syria?
Spam Ranger posted his second documents case on X. It's very good. Please check it out. That's from Patty F. Weber. I'm going to screen grab that and open it, and I'll come back to this window. I believe it's significant FAA violation shooting down a drone. True, but it's also an FAA violation to fly a drone over private property without the consent of the owner. But if it was a delivery drone, that might be different. That was from Woodworker 1999.
That's a good question. What are the legal? So have you researched that? What are the legal?
Well, I know
rights
it is in Canada.
Responsibilities of when you're flying a drone. Is the airspace independent space, or is it that person's space?
Within proximity, you're not allowed flying a drone in Canada. Just say it's like 90 meters. Say it's like 100 meters of a property or a person not involved in the production. And so you can't fly it like 3 feet over people's head at a beach just because it's a public area. So it has to be a certain distance from people from private property without the consent of the owner in every state. But then it's a question: a delivery drone. How do they get around that? It's like, ring a freaking doorbell. Don't fly a drone over people's houses. It's not going to end well for anybody. Ostpack says, Robert, how do you address the I don't recall issue given the people you have these pardons can now be called to testify? I think we talked about this. Also, how do they address the I'm taking the fifth because the state could charge me as well? Okay, we covered that one. Stu P. Dossel, Robert, when an iguana is standing about 3 feet tall running at you, you will run. Happened in Gitmo when in service. We got Stingray says the U.S. started airstrikes on ISIS in Syria. I just saw John Solomon on X posted it. I had seen that as well. Okay. That was from Stingray. Stoopy Dossel. It says, okay. There may have been some alcohol involved in running from the iguanas. Then we got Mrs. Fixit Nevada. What do you think of the new AG appointment and her anti-Second Amendment stands, especially supporting red flag laws? We talked about Pam Bondi last week, Mrs. Fixit, but
I think she's
not
okay.
as good.
I think she's not great. I think she's not terrible. She has potential. We'll see where it translates, but that will probably depend heavily on Kash Patel, and it will then depend on who Trump appoints to be in. He appoints over 400 individual U.S. attorneys who have their own power across the country. Mm-hmm. That will be very consequential to what happens at the Justice Department.
We got Boopsy says, got here late. How much does Biden's new protection of government employees hinder Doge? We talked about that. They can defund.
There's very little they can really do. And again, take away the money, you solve all the problem.
Little Philly, Viva, get Justine Bateman to talk about her video reviews. They're hysterical. I've screen grabbed that and I'll look at that. Question: does Hunter Biden clean the money? Does the Hunter Biden clean the money knuckle fist?
It kind of does. It only partially does, but it kind of does. It limits the ability for Hunter to be a weak link in that context, put it that way. But people have always misunderstood is Hunter is not the organizer of any of this.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is the grifter. His son, his brother, his sister were the tools by which he made sure he got very rich. He could care less what happened to any of them.
If you all make graduation course, let me know. I'll graduate law school this time next year. Buffalo Betsy, we were going to look into that. Has there been SCOTUS decision on presidential pardon power?
There has, but not quite, but none that resolve some of the issues that people are raising currently.
All right, we got a last three here. Rick Cortus, you know they are insane when they put you in jail for not wearing a mask but not wearing a condom. They made transmitting AIDS not a crime. Well, they made it non-felony. I think it's still a misdemeanor. And they give free abortions. That's Recortes. Neurodivergence says, David, I put that guy from Rumble Chat in timeout for 5 minutes thinking it might calm him down a bit. It didn't. I was about to mute him for the stream when you nuked him. Some people just don't know how to chill out. People are crazy. I mean,
you always get the bad faith trolls that try to intermix and make everyone else's life miserable.
Yeah, it's like, but it's if you troll, spamming troll will get you put out. If you ever want me to crack down harder, just say the word. Don't worry about a neurodivergent. You're doing a good job. And good to have you back, Barnes, says Plant Nerd. And just because it's the last one here, Trump better have pink slips for all U.S. attorneys already written. Republicans have been dumb in not mass fire. Well, maybe they'll have what was it? The Midnight Massacre when who was it? Who did the Midnight Massacre?
That was Nixon and Bork fired a bunch of people.
Robert, you are looking good. Let's not push our limit. Go rest up. Thank you. I mean, Godspeed, God bless, and keep getting better. But you all know the schedule for this week. Thank you all for being here. And we'll end. Robert and I say proper goodbyes. Everybody out there, peace.